Every man has, at some point, dreamed of becoming a martial arts master. The dream is often to practice justice and uphold loyalty in a chaotic world. It is a fantasy about the life of a hero, journeying far and wide. The sound these masters create is said to be entirely different from an average man. While many dream of this life, not everyone is destined to experience it. For some, reality is not a sword but the heavy grip of a blacksmith's hammer. The story begins in a lively town, built alongside a shimmering river. A muscular man with long hair works tirelessly in a forge, shaping hot metal. Outside his workshop, the streets of the town bustle with people going about their day. Two young boys are seen play-fighting with wooden sticks as an elder watches them. It's for this very reason, with the sound of steel ringing in the air, that young boys fantasize so much about the life of a martial artist. Inside the forge, a stern-looking older man with white hair observes the blacksmith. The young man stops his work and approaches the elder, offering him a small tray. He stands respectfully before the seated figure, who watches him with a sharp gaze. The young man politely thanks the elder for waiting, presenting the acupuncture needles he ordered. He is introduced as Tang, a 20-year-old physician, looking earnest and a bit nervous. There is a sound that can awaken a dreaming boy, turning him into a true hero. The elder picks up one of the fine needles, his expression serious as he inspects its quality. He asks Mujin if he is truly a physician, and the young man respectfully confirms it. Without warning, the old man makes a surprising demand, telling Mujin to become his disciple. The young physician is completely stunned by the unexpected offer, his face frozen in disbelief. He can only manage a confused sound, unable to process the sudden turn of events. The scene transitions with a butterfly, marking the beginning of that fateful day. Overlooking the city, the narration says Mujin heard the sound that would change his life. The story then flashes back a few months to show his life before this moment. A physician's day begins early, copying medical scrolls until the rooster crows at dawn. His daily routine includes various chores like organizing medicine and sweeping the courtyard. He also meticulously cleans and prepares his set of fine acupuncture needles. Someone calls him for breakfast while he and other disciples practice locating pressure points. The flashback shows his quiet, repetitive life. An old physician asks a young patient if an acupuncture needle hurts, and the boy happily says it doesn't. The doctor, who is Mujin's father, smiles and offers the child a treat for being so brave during the treatment. Watching from afar, Mujin reflects that this quiet focus is what built his father's legendary skills over the years. He truly admires his father's technique, thinking it is as gentle as a butterfly landing on a person's skin. He wonders if he will ever be able to reach that level of skill, then calls out to his father to get his attention. The young physician says he will be back with more herbs, and then leaves the clinic, running off into the town. He dashes across a bridge, making his way through the busy streets of the city on his errand. He stops to greet a medicine vendor, who confirms that he has what the young physician needs. Along the way, a local butcher cheerfully offers Mujin some meat as a gift. He continues through the marketplace, waving back at the friendly townspeople who call out his name. As he waves, he fails to notice a group of stern-looking warriors walking straight towards him. He suddenly collides with one of the figures, the impact stopping him abruptly in the middle of the street. Looking up in surprise, he wonders what is standing in the middle of the road, blocking his path. A large, intimidating man with glowing eyes glares down at him, angrily asking if he is walking with his eyes closed. Mujin immediately becomes nervous and quickly apologizes, admitting that the mistake was his fault. The man grins menacingly, suggesting that someone might need to teach the young man a lesson for his carelessness. Despite the beating that follows, Mujin narrates that sometimes he still holds on to his dream of becoming a hero. The scene then shifts to a quiet, secluded hut, nestled among the trees in a peaceful forest clearing. Mujin sits with a bruised eye and a puffy cheek, looking thoroughly annoyed by the whole situation. His friend, a herb gatherer named Zhang Guak, finds it hilarious and teases him about getting beaten up. Zhang Guak mockingly reenacts the scene, imitating both the bully's threat and a plea for forgiveness. He continues his joke, asking if Mujin wants another black eye so he can look like a panda for a day. Having had enough, Mujin suddenly jabs his friend in the eye with 2 fingers, silencing him instantly. As Zhang Guak cries out in pain, Mujin yells that he already told him to stop the teasing. Later, both boys sit exhausted and bruised from their scuffle, trying to catch their breath after the fight. His friend asks if he's hungry, and Mujin confirms he is, agreeing when asked if he wants something good to eat. At that moment, Jong Guak reveals a strange-looking red mushroom covered in glowing butterfly patterns. He offers the peculiar fungus to his friend, but Mujin just looks at it with a confused expression. Mujin gets angry, thinking he is still being teased, but Jong Guak insists the mushroom is very valuable. The herb gatherer explains that it is a special mushroom that allows whoever eats it to have special dreams. Jong Guak confirms, taking a bite to demonstrate, saying this mushroom allows for incredible experiences. He claims it can let a person dream of being a king or even an ascended sage, before shoving a piece into his friend's mouth. This gets Mujin's attention, especially when his friend boasts that last time he dreamed of being a pinnacle-level martial artist. The herb gatherer adds that the sensations in the dream felt completely real, and the mushroom's poison is harmless. Convinced, Mujin eagerly grabs the rest of the mushroom and swallows it all in one large gulp. His friend panics, shouting that he wasn't supposed to eat the whole thing at once. As Mujin starts to feel the effects, Jong Guak explains that a single bite is enough to experience the dream of a pinnacle martial artist. Mujin begins to hallucinate, seeing himself as a master of swords, believing he and his blade are one. He laughs manically, convinced he will become the greatest sword master, while his friend calls him an idiot. He dismisses his friend's concerns, saying he is not responsible if anything bad happens. The young physician boasts that as a doctor, he can identify things just by looking at them, which Jong Guak doubts. His friend says the effects should hit soon, so they should just wait and see what happens next. Suddenly, Mujin's expression becomes dazed, and he starts drooling, giving a thumbs up to his friend. Jong Guak stares in horror as his friend's strange behavior intensifies, clearly not what he expected. Mujin's vision starts to blur and distort, the world around him shifting as the mushroom's potent effects take hold. In his dream, Mujin finds himself in a fiery landscape, a mountain of discarded weapons forged under intense heat. A powerful figure stands amidst the flames, holding a glowing tablet as a storm of energy deflects incoming blades. The man's hand firmly grips a massive hammer, its head engraved with ancient characters ready to shape destiny itself. Now a master blacksmith, he hammers a glowing ingot, feeling the embers on his skin like butterflies as sparks fly. He identifies himself as Tang Mujin, a lifelong blacksmith, expressing how this moment of creation never fails to amaze him. But then, a flicker of confusion crosses his face, as if a foreign thought has suddenly intruded on his mind. He questions the name Tang Mujin, declaring that his true name is Uyezi, the unparalleled master of smithing. Snapping back to reality, he strikes the hot metal once more, trying to shake off the strange feeling. He wonders if he dazed off, dismissing the bizarre dream of being a physician as a sign of exhaustion from his work. Holding the glowing blade, he resolves to get himself together and refocus on the monumental task before him. He declares that he will craft the 5 legendary master swords that were requested by the king of the Yuas. The legendary craftsman proclaims that these swords will be the greatest work of his life, and he will pour his soul into them. With a mighty roar, he calls out his name, Uyezi, as a volcano erupts behind him, channeling its power into his forge. In the cosmos of his dream, the first sword, Zhan Lu, materializes among the suns and moons, a blade of legend. Then, another masterpiece appears, the intricately designed sword known as Juke, forged from dreams and starlight. The vision continues, revealing the final 3 swords, the mighty Shangxi, the swift Yuchang, and the noble Chunjun. Together they form the 5 master swords, legendary weapons forged by both heaven and man over 2 long decades. In his dream, the blacksmith transcends mortality, becoming a sage surrounded by celestial beings who praise his glorious creations. He looks up with a fulfilled smile, having accomplished the dreams of mankind and the orders of the heavens themselves. A grand celebration begins, with heavenly peach wine being poured to greet the new immortal who has ascended. As he walks through paradise, a voice declares it a grand day for Uyezi, celebrating his achievement. All of heaven raises a toast to him, honoring the day the master blacksmith finally reached paradise. The idyllic dream is filled with the sight of delicate pink blossoms floating gently through the celestial air. But the perfect moment is broken when a celestial maiden stumbles, accidentally knocking over a golden pitcher. The heavenly wine spills from the sky, splashing directly down onto the newly ascended immortal's face. The dream shatters, and Mujin is back in reality, collapsed on the ground while an angry man yells in disbelief. He lies there dazed and confused, his eyes wide as he slowly comes back to his senses, still reeling from the vision. The sign of the Tang family clinic is shown, where the incident has clearly caused a huge problem. An official storms out, furious that he trusted a recommendation for a novice who can't even perform acupuncture properly. He vows to have the young physician forced into retirement before stomping away in a rage, leaving chaos behind him. Mujin watches the fuming official walk away, clutching his head in confusion and distress over what just happened. His friend Zhang Guok is furious, complaining about the arrogance of government officials like the man who just left. The young physician, still disoriented, asks what happened, saying his head hurts immensely and his memory is a blur. Zhang Guok points to the sky, telling him to look at the setting sun, revealing that a lot of time has passed. He explains that Mujin was hallucinating and talking nonsense, then suddenly dragged him back to the clinic. With the explanation over, Zhang Guok starts to leave, saying that at least the whole chaotic incident is over now. He warns his friend not to tell his father about the mushroom, and Mujin nervously agrees, thanking him for his help. As the herb gatherer walks away thinking his friend is an idiot, Mujin just waves goodbye, still looking dazed. Now alone, Mujin grabs his throbbing head, trying to make sense of the situation and the lingering headache. He looks at the Tang family sign on the building, wondering if the vivid experience he had was really just a dream. He then enters the clinic, announcing his return as he sees his father holding an acupuncture needle with a drop of blood on it. The young man approaches, apologizing for being late and explaining that he has returned with the herbs he was sent for. As he gets closer, he calls out to his father, noticing the somber and heavy atmosphere in the courtyard. The old physician finally turns to look at his son, welcoming him back with a very tired and weary expression. Mujin begins to ask about the angry official who left, but a sudden, intense energy flares up around him. He stares at the acupuncture needle, which seems to pulse with an invisible crackling energy. Suddenly, the memories from his dream flood his mind, causing an overwhelming and agonizing headache. The pain is intense, as if his very mind is trembling, mixed with a deep and unfamiliar feeling of frustration. His father asks what is wrong, but the young man nervously dismisses it, trying to hide his strange condition. The old physician explains that the new needles were too painful for the official, but Mujin is sure they were fine. To show him, his father holds up one of the new needles next to a bent one from his old set for comparison. As Mujin looks at them, he starts to hear a strange, faint sound that seems to be coming from the needles themselves. He is certain he did not hear that sound in the morning, which only adds to his father's confusion. The frustration builds inside him, and his father, seeing his chills, mistakenly believes he has just caught a cold. As the old physician offers to brew some medicine, Mujin's hands move on their own, grabbing the bent needle. With a sudden clink, he effortlessly straightens the bent metal, restoring it to a perfect, usable state. He hands the flawless needle back to his father, not realizing this is the moment his true potential awakens. The old physician stares at the perfectly restored needle, his eyes wide with utter disbelief at the impossible feat. His eyes gleam as he mocks the object, questioning its inferior quality. This new persona feels an intense irritation, finding the sight of such poorly made items completely unbearable. He now sees the difference between a straight needle and a bent one, with one resonating perfection and the other imperfection. Walking through the crowded street, the young physician clenches his fists, realizing that just yesterday he couldn't even tell if something was poorly made. He understands this is all because of a strange new power that suddenly appeared, causing the world to vibrate with new information. As he looks around, everything from incense burners to a vendor's stall seems to emit a flawed, irritating aura. The constant sensory input becomes overwhelming, and he clutches his head as a sharp pain shoots through him. His face contorts in frustration because he can't stop being annoyed by how shoddy everything around him feels. But then his thoughts shift back to the bent needle he fixed, which now seems to glow with a pleasant, invigorating energy. Looking at it brought an exhilarating feeling, reminding him of a master blacksmith's pride in his work. The young man knows with certainty that this needle is the pride of Sichuan, a masterpiece forged by the great master blacksmith Sok. Yet a wave of confusion hits him as he wonders how he knows this, since the new needles were supposed to be from the same master. He sweats nervously, unable to understand why the two sets of needles are so vastly different in quality. Hoping that nothing serious is wrong, he clenches his fists and runs off to find answers to his growing concerns. His destination is a large building with a sign identifying it as the town's metallurgy workshop, with smoke billowing from its chimney. The forge is a sprawling compound where the city's metal goods and weapons are created by skilled craftsmen. Inside, rows of magnificent swords are on display, each one sparkling with the undeniable mark of quality and skill. He feels an instant connection to the craftsmanship, his eyes widening in pure admiration as he exclaims that this is it. The young man hugs the sword's hilt, saying its resplendent finish makes all his previous irritation vanish instantly. He declares there is no way Master Seok's skills could ever decline, not noticing a woman nearby looking at him strangely. But then he pauses, holding the sword up to inspect it more closely as a sudden thought crosses his mind. He wonders if dreaming of the master artisan Oyezi has somehow given him the ability to discern another craftsman's skill. The young physician realizes there is even more to this strange new power than he first thought, his eyes glinting. Memories from his dream show the legendary blacksmith selecting the finest ore and then beginning his work at the forge. The vision shows the master pouring all his energy into shaping the metal, surrounded by intense heat and sparks. He understands that with a single glance, he can now perceive Master Blacksmith Seok's entire metallurgy process. He clutches the sword, questioning if he truly gained an expert eye he never had before just because of a dream. A determined look crosses his face as he tries to process the impossible and confusing situation he finds himself in. He tells himself that no matter how vivid, a dream is just a dream, and learning a blacksmith's trade from it is absurd. But if it were true, he thinks with a grimace, then his friend Jong Guak would be a master of the highest level. Deciding he must confirm it, he runs off, determined to find Master Seok and discover what has happened to him. Suddenly, a massive shout echoes from the direction of the workshop, stopping him in his tracks just outside. Inside, an angry blacksmith confronts him, questioning why he is not satisfied with the new acupuncture needles. The man introduces himself as Seok Ji-sung, the master's son, and fumes that he will not be treated like an amateur after 20 years of work. Mujin tries to explain that he didn't mean to imply the smith was unskilled, but the man just turns away, still annoyed. Seok Ji-sung then reveals that his father, the master blacksmith, has retired, a piece of news that makes Mujin realize what a disaster this is. The young physician now understands why few weapons in the shop felt right, concluding that the new needles were made by the son. He sighs in frustration, his mind racing as he tries to process this new and complicated information. The smith admits he is far from his father's level, but is insulted that a physician's son is looking down on him. He challenges Mujin to use his supposed skill to find one of the master's original works among the many weapons in the workshop. The craftsman points to a rack of swords, demanding that the young man show him exactly what his own work is lacking. He scoffs privately, convinced that the physician's son will not be able to tell the difference between their crafts. However, Mujin immediately finds and holds up a set of blades, leaving the blacksmith completely stunned by his speed and accuracy. The smith stares in disbelief, wondering how he found his father's work so fast, and if their skill difference is truly that vast. He admits that most people overlook those pieces due to their simple design, then awkwardly praises Mujin for his remarkable eye. Mujin smirks, glad the man admitted it. This experience confirms his belief that what he experienced was no ordinary dream. The blacksmith explains he just thought Mujin was a troublesome customer, but now he understands his dissatisfaction. The smith admits he was only half joking, amazed that the young man picked out all of his father's remaining works. He concedes that Mujin's eye for quality is better than his own, and his own work pales in comparison to such discernment. The craftsman feels that at best, he can only produce something slightly less clumsy, much to the young physician's surprise. Convinced there is only one solution, the blacksmith picks up a large hammer, his expression resolved. He then pushes the heavy tool into Mujin's hands, declaring that the young man must forge the needles himself. The youth is completely stunned by the unexpected proposal, unable to believe what he is being asked to do. The smith says if he thinks it is impossible, he will try again with more care, but under the youth's guidance, Mujin considers the rare opportunity, wondering how many chances a person gets to play the part of a blacksmith. He agrees to the challenge, taking off his outer robe and telling the craftsman they should begin right away. The first step of the process is to gather the necessary raw materials for the forge, including ore and wood. The blacksmith tells him to start with simple practice, and Mujin begins fanning the flames to heat up the furnace. As the forge heats up, he starts to feel a sense of doubt, wondering if he can really do this based only on a dream. He thinks the situation is absurd, like asking a patient to insert their own needles and decoct their own medicine. Despite his hesitation, an instinct takes over, and he brings the hammer down hard on the glowing piece of metal. A powerful and undeniable urge to swing the hammer fills him as he works, while the smith watches on with a serious expression. The blacksmith watches with wide eyes, completely stunned by the sight before him. The young physician works with a focused and steady rhythm, his movements fluid and precise at the forge. Each strike of the hammer lands with perfect force, shaping the glowing metal with an expert's touch. A bead of sweat drips down his face as he smiles, realizing that the knowledge from his dream is actually working. The smith is in utter disbelief, admitting to himself that he intended to mock the youth, but his hammering is flawless. He thinks Mujin's technique is not that of a physician but is as natural as his father, who has hammered steel his entire life. The sound of the hammer striking the metal is like a beautiful chime, resonating with a pure musical quality. The craftsman wonders if he is witnessing the reincarnation of the legendary master blacksmith, Uyezi. As he watches the flames dance around the young man, he questions if what he is seeing is the true realm of talent. He quickly realizes that this display of skill is something that transcends even the greatest natural talent. Under Mujin's hands, a blade of exceptional quality begins to take shape, glowing with a powerful aura. Now filled with excitement, the smith urges him to continue, wanting to see him strike, quench, and sharpen the blade. The blacksmith's eyes are completely captivated by the process, reflecting the fiery creation of the weapon. As Mujin holds up the finished sword, the smith eagerly asks to see how he will make the handle and the sheath as well. He throws back the blade, demanding that the young doctor show him the finished masterpiece that exists in his mind. But instead of presenting the finished work, he asks the blacksmith to melt the blade down, leaving the man completely speechless. The young physician explains that was just a warm-up. Now he is ready to forge the actual acupuncture needles. The workshop's chimney once again billows with intense smoke and fire, signaling that a true master is at work inside. Sometime later, a perfectly forged needle is finished, its tip gleaming with a brilliant and flawless light. The new needle pierces a patient's skin with such gentleness and precision that the entry is completely painless. Back at the clinic, the official who stormed out before is receiving treatment, while his companions ask if it hurts. To his own surprise, the man exclaims that his back pain is completely gone, leaving the other elders amazed by the swift recovery. The patient asks if the needle is even in, and the physician confirms it is. The angry official now wonders if he was wrong that day. The news of the miraculous cures spreads quickly, and a huge crowd rushes to the clinic, praising the physician's skills. Soon, a massive line forms outside the Tang family clinic, stretching far across the bridge and into the city. Meanwhile, on a quiet road outside of town, a mysterious figure in a wide-brimmed hat rests at a small pavilion. Two travelers carrying large packs walk up the path, chatting about their journey as they pass the stranger. One suggests the other should have visited the famous Tang clinic for his back pain, but his friend says he already tried. The traveler complains that the line was so long he couldn't even see the clinic's roof, as the lone figure listens in. Hearing this, the mysterious man gets to his feet and begins walking down the path, heading towards the town. At the Tang family clinic, a voice announces they are open and asks the large crowd to form a line. The waiting patients begin to move forward in an orderly fashion, entering through the main gate of the compound. But suddenly, an angry man in the crowd starts yelling, accusing someone of rudely cutting the line. The other patients turn to look at the source of the commotion, their faces filled with shock and fear. Mujin steps out into the courtyard, wondering what is causing such a disturbance among the waiting people. He then sees the glint of a sharp blade as it is pressed threateningly against a man's throat. The mysterious stranger from the road has the loud man pinned to the ground, holding him at sword point. He looks down at the terrified man with a smug and confident expression, clearly in control of the situation. Mujin watches in shock, realizing that he is witnessing a dangerous fight between two martial artists. The stranger says it is only proper to oblige the challenge, then swiftly swings his blade at the man on the ground. A spray of blood flies through the air, and the young physician can only watch in wide-eyed horror. As the injured man cries out and collapses, Mujin rushes forward in a panic, trying to help him. He kneels beside the man, immediately pressing down on the deep wounds to try and stop the bleeding. But as he looks closer, he sees the stranger has not just cut the man, but has carved words into his skin. He is stunned to see the words were carved without harming bone or muscle, realizing this man is a master. As the stranger walks away, Mujin realizes he has heard the name Phantom Doctor somewhere before. The master warrior scoffs at the man on the ground for making such a fuss, which catches the young physician's attention. He says the man only fainted from a scratch, and the wound will heal if treated properly with medicine. But he adds a threatening condition, saying that is only if he can find a proper physician to treat him. Suddenly, Mujin remembers everything. The stranger is Yi Chong, the Phantom Doctor, also known as the Physician Slayer. A flashback begins, showing his father. Mujin recalls how he always used to feel a sense of peace when looking at him. Even as a young boy, he would watch his father with deep admiration and a feeling of calm security. He reflects that his father may not have been the greatest or most famous physician in the entire land, but like a strong, ancient tree, he was a steadfast and resolute physician who always held his ground. Watching his father's example was how he learned the true virtue of what it means to be a dedicated physician. In contrast, Yi Chong is a master of the highest level who roams the world, one of the three great physicians under heaven. He is known as a strange man who weighs the fates of others with both his sword and his healing arts. It is said there is no good or evil in his judgment, as he pronounces life or death based on his whims. He acts without any clear moral compass, deciding the fates of others with his incredible and unpredictable power. On top of that, he is a notorious serial killer who has murdered dozens of innocent physicians across the Central Plains. His eyes widen in terror as he realizes that the dangerous man is heading straight for his father. He tries to run after the stranger but is suddenly stopped by an unseen force, crying out in frustration. The young physician sees the physician slayer heading directly towards his father's study, a place of peace and healing. He desperately screams his father's name, terrified of what the infamous killer might do to him. Suddenly, a man calls his name, stopping him. He turns to see a sect instructor holding him back. The man, a head instructor named Jin Song, tells him that the situation was beyond their control. The youth desperately asks what he means, hoping the sect leader can stop the intruder, but the instructor remains silent. Jin Song explains that even their master will not stand in the Phantom Doctor's way, despite him being a villain. He then reveals that their master's life was just saved by the Phantom Doctor, leaving Mujin completely stunned by the news. He falls to his knees in the courtyard, defeated and unable to help, as the head instructor watches over him. A hand gently rests on his shoulder, and he looks up to see his father standing beside him, safe and sound. The old physician tells his son not to worry about the intruder's dangerous reputation. He explains that the Phantom Doctor he met was eccentric, but he was certainly not a villain. Inside the study, the Phantom Doctor releases a powerful burst of energy, shattering the calm atmosphere of the room. He stands there with a confident grin, ready to face the person he came all this way to meet. As the Phantom Doctor turns, Mujin and the instructor stare in shock, their eyes fixed on the hilt of his sword. The young physician then notices that the man's sleeves are perfectly clean, showing no signs of a fight. He breathes a huge sigh of relief, realizing his father was never in any danger from the strange visitor. But just as he calms down, the intimidating warrior suddenly grabs him by the front of his robes. The master leans in close, revealing that physician Tang told him there was a skilled blacksmith in town. He asks if the young man knows of such a place, and Mujin nervously stammers that he does. The stranger then orders him to lead the way, dragging the youth along with him as he protests weakly. The hilt of the master's sword bumps against Mujin's side, a constant reminder of the man's power. The young physician looks terrified, sweating as he is held in the warrior's unyielding grip. The Phantom Doctor asks impatiently if he is coming, reminding him with a menacing grin that he is a busy man. They finally arrive back at the metallurgy workshop, where the forge's chimney is still billowing smoke. Inside, the master points to the new acupuncture needles, asking if it was Mujin, not the smith, who made them. The young physician smiles and confirms that he did, while the blacksmith stands beside him looking confused. The phantom doctor suddenly bursts into loud laughter, finding the entire situation completely absurd. He exclaims that the strangest things happen in Sichuan, now that a physician's son is practicing metallurgy. Wiping a tear from his eye, he dismisses the absurdity and places an order for 30 needles from Tang. As payment, he offers a single gleaming piece of gold, which leaves both the youth and the blacksmith stunned. They both shout in unison, completely shocked by the sight of the precious and valuable metal. Mujin bows deeply, enthusiastically accepting the generous offer and promising to have the needles ready by sunset. The phantom doctor is taken aback by this bold claim, questioning how such a task could be completed so quickly. He clarifies that he means today, not months from now, knowing that even renowned blacksmiths take several days for such work. Clutching the gold with a greedy grin, the young physician confidently repeats that he can do it today. The master is skeptical, thinking the youth is lying because he is blinded by the gold, but Mujin insists he can do it, and the blacksmith beside him nervously vouches for his incredible ability. The three of them stand in the workshop, the master watching with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. As the stranger waits, both the youth and the smith look up, their attention suddenly drawn to him. The phantom doctor clears his throat and then places his own finely crafted sword on the table between them. Mujin suddenly remembers the magnificent blade and curses himself for getting distracted by the gold. The master challenges him to try, a menacing grin on his face as he warns the boy that he had better be able to deliver. The young physician nervously agrees, and the forge's chimney once again begins to churn out thick black smoke. A massive explosion of fire and smoke erupts from the forge's chimney, signaling the start of the intense work. Inside, the phantom doctor watches as the shirtless young physician works tirelessly at the anvil, assisted by the blacksmith. He knows the arduous process of making needles involves drawing and grinding hundreds of iron threads, selecting only the perfect ones. The master decides to see for himself if the power the young man possesses is something more than just sheer luck. He notes that for a physician, the youth's body is surprisingly well trained and muscular from his work. His eyes widen in surprise as he observes the young physician's flawless and powerful technique. The intense work continues inside the metallurgy workshop, the sounds of the hammer echoing throughout the city. Mujin's hand grips the heavy hammer with a strength and confidence that seems entirely natural to him. The phantom doctor is visibly shocked as he witnesses the raw power and precision behind each and every strike. The young physician brings the hammer down with incredible force, his body moving with the grace of a seasoned master. His focus is absolute, every movement perfect as he shapes the glowing hot metal on the anvil before him. The legendary warrior's eye reflects the scene, completely captivated by the unbelievable display of skill. Finally, the smoke from the chimney clears, and a voice apologizes to the master for the long wait. Mujin, sweating but triumphant, announces that the needles the man ordered are now finally ready. The phantom doctor looks up with a confused and surprised expression, not expecting the work to be done so soon. He asks why the master is making such an offer, and the man replies that having a skilled blacksmith is convenient for him. The youth points out that this sounds more like a contract, but the master simply tells him to call it whatever he likes. The warrior then tests him, asking how he would treat a patient with a specific set of complex symptoms. After Mujin gives the correct prescription, the master declares that he has passed the test and is now his disciple. He explains that anyone with the insight to have memorized classic medical texts is worthy of learning martial arts. The master adds that he will understand the importance of intelligence once he tries teaching someone who is not very bright. He says that fools just swing their swords aimlessly and end up as second-rate fighters, unable to recognize true quality. Hearing this, the young physician looks at the master, a serious and important question forming in his mind. He then asks the warrior if he believes he has what it takes to become a first-rate master under his guidance. The master explains that a student surpassing their teacher is a true measure of the master's own skill. Understanding the implication, Mujin clenches his fist, a new and powerful sense of determination filling him. He walks through the courtyard of his home, his mind now set on a path he never could have imagined before. His eyes shine with excitement as he thinks of the incredible possibility of reaching the pinnacle of mastery. Filled with a surge of energy, he clenches his fist and stomps his foot, ready to begin his new training. He leaps into the air, practicing his first martial arts moves with enthusiasm, eager for the journey ahead. He lands with a powerful punch, grinning as he enjoys his newfound physical abilities and training. His practice is cut short when his father appears. The young man bows respectfully and apologizes for being late. The old physician suddenly grabs his son's shoulders, his hands trembling with a powerful and visible emotion. Mujin becomes concerned, asking what is wrong as his father continues to shake, unable to form any words. The old man finally explains through tears that he was terrified something had happened to him with the Phantom Doctor. The youth reassures his father that everything is fine, saying the warrior was not as fearsome as the rumors suggested. His father is relieved but asks why it took so long just to guide the man to the blacksmith's workshop. Mujin then reveals that the stranger asked him to be his disciple, giving him until the next evening to decide. The young man comments that the master's title is not just for show, appearing out of nowhere with such an offer. As they walk together, his father suddenly stops in his tracks, causing Mujin to ask what is wrong. The old man stands silently at the doorway, not responding to his son's question about why he stopped walking. Without warning, the old physician collapses to the ground, and Mujin rushes forward in a panic, calling his name. A crack splinters across the stone tiles from the impact, leaving the young man completely shocked and confused. As the old man's robes fall open, they reveal a large pile of sparkling silver ingots that he had been hiding. Mujin stares in confusion, wondering where his father could have gotten so much silver all of a sudden. His father looks at him with the setting sun in the background and calmly tells him that he should go. The young physician is completely confused, asking what he means since the clinic is already so short-handed these days. He tries to laugh it off nervously, suggesting that the man must have been joking because of his strange nickname. But his father quickly cuts him off, insisting that being short-handed is not the real issue at hand. The old physician looks his son in the eye, telling him with great seriousness that the only time he can leave is now. The youth stares back, surprised by his father's sudden and uncharacteristic intensity and determination. He remembers always seeing his father as a steadfast, ancient tree, a figure who always held his ground firmly. But his father's sudden words make him realize something new and profound about the man he has always known. The scene fills with golden butterflies, symbolizing a moment of deep and important realization for the young man. As the butterflies swarm the ancient tree, he finally understands that his father, too, was once a boy with his own dreams. 2 days after beginning his martial arts training, the young man successfully achieves small circulation. For the first time, he feels a new sensation coursing through his entire body as his internal energy grows stronger each day. He meditates, trying to find the right words to describe this unfamiliar feeling of power awakening within him. His eyes gleam with a newfound intensity, reflecting his deep concentration and the changes happening inside. He realizes it's more than just getting stronger. It feels like he is truly advancing on his path. A memory surfaces of his father telling him this was his only chance to leave, and he silently expresses his gratitude. An acorn suddenly falls on his head, startling him. A voice asks if he is homesick, but he quickly denies it. The voice belongs to an older man perched on a tree branch, who has been watching him with a knowing smile. As the master lands, the youth proudly notes that his internal energy feels stronger today, which the elder finds interesting. The young man boasts that he must have talent, but his master dismisses it, saying his progress is merely average. He protests, arguing that mastering small circulation in 2 days when it takes others 10 clearly shows his talent. A moment later, a heavy sword is thrust into his hands, leaving him completely confused by the sudden turn of events. His master challenges him to swing it once, promising to carry him to Sichuan if he can even cut a piece of his clothing. The youth asks nervously if the offer is real, his shocked expression reflected on the polished blade. He panics upon realizing it's a real sharp sword, worried that a single mistake could be fatal. He nervously reasons that after 10 days of progress, perhaps a surprise attack is his best and only option. He launches a swift attack, swinging the heavy sword while his master stands completely unguarded and seemingly unaware. The master remarks on his student's progress, wondering if he truly gained talent and momentum as energy glows around his feet. With a determined shout, the young warrior puts all his strength into the swing, hoping to catch his teacher by surprise. He brings the sword down with full force, but the elder effortlessly blocks the powerful strike with a simple wooden stick. The disciple is stunned that his blade didn't even scratch the stick, questioning how it could be stronger than iron. His master then gives him a strange warning, telling him to bite down hard on his molars, leaving the youth confused. A sinister grin spreads across the elder's face as he channels a massive surge of purple energy through the stick. The young man feels a powerful wave of energy traveling up the blade and coursing through his entire body. He struggles against the overwhelming current, his eyes wide with shock as the sheer force begins to push him back. The blast of energy becomes too much, sending him flying backward as the heavy sword is ripped from his grasp. A small puff of smoke marks his rough landing in the middle of the grassy field, far from where he started. Dazed, he gets on his hands and knees, staring at a puddle that has mysteriously formed on the ground before him. The master calmly approaches and asks how it felt to experience internal energy, but the youth remains speechless on the ground. He finally shouts in frustration, confused as to why having more internal energy doesn't automatically mean being stronger. The master explains that he also lacks great internal energy, which is why he avoids fights based on raw power, as martial arts is far more complex. The youth reminds the elder of his promise to make him a peak master, worried that starting late makes it impossible if quantity is all that matters. The elder reassures him that there are many paths to mastery, pointing out that the boy tried to resist his energy but instinctively withdrew. Calling that a good path, he tells his student to attack again, promising not to use any internal energy this time. The two of them face off in the clearing once more, preparing for the second round of their unconventional training. With a look of intense concentration, the young warrior readies his stance, determined to succeed in his next strike. He leaps forward with a powerful shout, bringing his sword down in a swift and decisive arc toward his teacher. Although the master blocks the attack with his stick again, the force of the blow manages to chip the wood slightly. The elder then leaps high into the air, and the youth looks up in shock, feeling a sudden sharp pressure on his forehead. He is knocked to the ground yet again, utterly defeated by his master's superior technique and speed. The master calmly states that even without internal energy, he could have defeated the boy 3 times, who lies on the ground dazed. Crouching beside his student, the teacher points out that his speed of accumulating internal energy is not particularly fast. He adds that the youth also lacks a special constitution for handling large amounts of energy at once, tapping his head with the stick. However, the master also highlights his student's strengths, including his good energy sense and his fast and accurate internal force manipulation. Later, as they walk through the forest, the elder explains that even aimless wandering can become a path to growth. The master smiles, impressed with his student's progress, and stating that for just 10 days of training, it's excellent. The disciple gets excited, wondering if he's a genius, but the master regrets his praise and gives him a light tap with the stick. A sudden rustling sound from the nearby forest interrupts them, and they both turn their heads to see what caused it. The youth spots a silhouette in the distance, initially mistaking it for a wild beast before realizing it's a person walking on 2 legs. A young man with spiky blue hair emerges from the trees, looking relieved as he spots them. The master notices the 3 knots on the stranger's belt and identifies him as a branch master, which shocks his disciple. The man introduces himself as Hong Ju-san, a branch master from Juel village, explaining he was looking for a physician due to recent deaths. The elder wonders how he got lost, but Jusan admits he's never left his village, and it's a good thing they didn't catch the strange disease. As they walk together, Jusan explains that a month ago, villagers fell ill with what they thought was just a spring cough, but the sickness spread rapidly, infecting over half the village and causing 20 deaths, forcing them to burn the bodies. He confesses that he considered fleeing with the other villagers but couldn't bring himself to abandon his home. He chose to stay and help the patients with his master, feeling a deep connection to the people he grew up with. They worked with the village physician, but when medicine ran out, the physician went to the mountains for herbs and never returned. Jusan expresses his deep gratitude to the two for not only helping, but also for showing him the way back home. They finally arrive at a vantage point overlooking the village below, and Jusan announces that they are almost there. An elderly man, the guardian of Jewel Village, greets them at the entrance and ushers them inside to see the patients. In a dimly lit room, they find a young boy lying on a cot, his body covered in red sores and glistening with sweat. The disciple reaches out to examine the sick child, his hand hovering over the boy's feverish skin. After checking the pulse, he senses an imbalance of fire and water energies, noting the excessive sweating and rapid heartbeat. He observes that the boy's ears are hot but his hands are cold, confirming that a dangerous amount of heat is rising to his head. He turns to his master and reports his diagnosis, identifying it as an epidemic-type condition with several concerning symptoms. When asked for a specific name, the disciple explains that it's similar to summer heat fire poison, but is missing the characteristic sour smell. He warns that without treatment, the boy could suffer blindness or permanent brain damage, and proposes a plan of acupuncture and herbal medicine. The elder praises his student's knowledge and then orders him to perform the acupuncture himself, causing the young man to freeze in panic. He nervously takes out a thin, sharp needle, his hand trembling slightly as he prepares for his first real procedure. He locates what he believes is the correct acupuncture point on the patient's foot, hesitating as he worries about making a mistake. Before he can proceed, his master's hand appears, gently correcting his aim and pointing to the precise spot. The master's hand glows with a faint blue aura as he reveals that energy circulation is a vital skill for a physician. As their energies connect through the patient, the disciple's senses are greatly amplified, creating a link between them. He feels his master's power guiding his own, allowing him to see into the boy's body and discover a dark, evil energy festering inside. His master confirms that he sensed the evil energy and instructs him to use acupuncture to test its reaction. As the villagers watch with concern, the young physician carefully inserts the needle into the patient's foot. He channels his internal energy, which surrounds him in a blue aura, concentrating on treating the unconscious boy. The procedure leaves him exhausted, and he wipes sweat from his brow while the others look on, waiting for a result. He stays focused, sweat dripping down his face as he carefully monitors the boy for any changes in his condition. Inside the patient, the dark red energy swirls violently near his eye, reacting aggressively to the treatment. The disciple's eyes widen as he feels the intense struggle within the boy's body, and he takes a sharp breath. After a few tense moments, the boy's condition seems to stabilize, with the acupuncture needles still in place. The young man finally lets out a huge sigh of relief, steam visibly leaving his mouth as the tension breaks. His master places a firm, reassuring hand on his shoulder, acknowledging his student's successful effort. The youth looks up at his teacher, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and gratitude for the guidance. The elder smiles proudly, remarking that it has been a day filled with valuable learning experiences for his student. He adds that seeing his determined face, he now looks like a true physician, having passed a critical test. Later that night, a mysterious figure stands on a cliff overlooking the village, shrouded in a strange, glowing mist. The next day, a villager tells them that the missing Dr. Yom was a good man who used all his savings to buy herbs for the sick. The villager adds that the town was so moved by the doctor's generosity that they pooled their own money to pay for the herbs when they arrived. He then apologizes for rambling, explaining his worry for his sick son, and shows them to an empty house where they can rest. The master and his student step inside the modest home, and a small doll lying on the wooden floor immediately catches the elder's eye. The doll lies abandoned, a silent reminder of the child who once played there before the plague swept through the village. A shadow of sadness crosses the master's face as he looks at the forgotten toy, his thoughts turning inward. The young physician praises Dr. Yeom's kindness, and his master, momentarily distracted, confirms he was talking about the village doctor. His student then wonders why such a generous village was struck by a plague, pointing to the food and gifts left for them. The master tells him to eat only what's needed and return the rest, saying they shouldn't add to the villagers' burden. As they sit down to eat, the youth asks about the plague, and the elder admits that it feels like a disease he's never seen before. The student is shocked that a great physician wouldn't know, but his master explains that for everything one learns, 5 new unknowns appear. He pours a drink, adding that he wouldn't be wandering the world if there was nothing left for him to learn. Curious, the young man asks if there was a specific disease his master always wanted to find a cure for. Looking at the small doll on a nearby table, the elder quietly admits that there was one, but he was too late to cure it. The youth looks at him, confused by the cryptic and sorrowful response, repeating the words "too late" under his breath. He holds his cup, his expression filled with questions, as a heavy silence settles between them in the fading light. Their quiet conversation is suddenly interrupted by a funeral cry from outside, and they both turn to look out the window. The sorrowful sound echoes across the valley, a grim reminder of the plague's relentless hold on the small mountain village. The young physician gazes out, thinking that medicine is useless without first understanding the nature of the illness. He looks at the image of the sick boy in his mind, wishing he had the knowledge to have cured all the victims. His master then begins to share a personal story, revealing that his own wife and daughter died from a similar sickness years ago. In a flashback, he recalls how they both developed a high fever and red spots, forcing him to seek help from a doctor. Despite consulting even a famous physician, no one knew the cure, and his family passed away within 4 days. The youth offers his condolences for the terrible loss, but the master calmly states that it's not a gloomy story. He takes a sip from his cup, adding that the second half of his tale is actually so ironic it's almost laughable. After their deaths, he suffered for a long time before leaving his hometown on impulse, as if bewitched by his grief. He walked away from his old life, leaving behind a small doll and the red cloth from his wedding day. He wandered aimlessly for 10 days on what should have been a one-day journey, eventually arriving at another small village. There, he found a small clinic, its presence marked by a simple paper lantern hanging from a wooden post. He remembers the country doctor well, a man with a mousy face who inspired no trust, but he described the symptoms anyway. The doctor listened and then, to his surprise, simply asked for 5 nyang and offered a medicine that he guaranteed would work. He says that with the money he had back then, he could have paid for his daughter's wedding multiple times. His family didn't die because of poverty or incompetence, but simply because one doctor knew what another did not. He smiles with a hint of sorrow, explaining that this experience is the very reason he chose to become a physician himself. He admits that after 30 years, he can barely remember his family's faces, letting out a hollow laugh. As they look out the window, the young man realizes that the same funeral cries they heard earlier are still echoing through the village. He notes that there was a deep sadness in his master's laughter, a sound that felt more like a wail of mourning. The next morning, the disciple decides to search for the source of the illness, and his master agrees to join him soon. He confidently reassures his teacher that he won't be slacking off as he walks away with the villagers. His investigation begins at a pig pen, where a large, seemingly healthy pig looks up at him with curious eyes. He observes the animals but finds nothing unusual, as the villagers stand behind him, watching his every move. Next, he peers down into the village well, searching for any sign of contamination or strange energy, but again finds nothing. He turns to the villagers and asks if the house they are approaching is indeed the first one to be affected by the sickness. They confirm that it is, and he stands before the 2-story wooden building, contemplating his next move. He recalls the basic principles of plagues. A cold plague chills the body, while a hot plague causes it to burn. Regardless of the symptoms, these illnesses are always caused by evil chi born in dark, damp places, but he senses nothing of the sort. He knows that an epidemic should spread outward in a circle, but the pattern of infection in this village doesn't fit that model. He asks the villagers if the disease spread to neighbors in a specific order after the first case, and they hesitate before answering. They explain that the west side of the village was affected before the east, and children got sick before the adults. This information confuses him further, as the clues don't seem to fit together, prompting him to ask what's different about the 2 sides. A villager recalls that the east is said to have more yang energy, but the physician dismisses this, as they saw no plague signs on the west side. The conversation then shifts to the children, and a villager suggests that their main play spot on the west side might be the key. The disciple immediately suspects the creek water, but then remembers seeing a well on the east side that wasn't murky. He asks the village elder if the east well is always dry, and the old man explains that it only happens during spring droughts. A sudden realization strikes the young physician, and he asks if the epidemic started around the same time the well dried up. He connects the dots. If the east well was dry, everyone would have started using the creek water, explaining the outbreak pattern. They all head to the creek, and the disciple kneels down to examine the clear, flowing water, a gentle ripple on its surface. He observes that the water doesn't look or smell strange, but all the evidence now points to it as the source. He decides that there's only one way to be certain, and prepares to examine the water more closely. He drinks a small amount of the water, and a strange sensation immediately spreads through his body. He sits down in a meditative posture, preparing to circulate his internal energy to analyze the water's effect on his system. As he meditates, he visualizes his own internal organs, focusing on the flow of energy and the effects of the water. He traces the path of the water as it enters his stomach, sensing a subtle but dangerous change in its composition. He is shocked to discover the same evil energy he found in the sick boy, now present within his own body. He quickly stands up, startling the two villagers who were watching him with a mix of curiosity and concern. He excitedly points up the creek, announcing that he's found a clue and urging the others to follow him. The small group begins to walk upstream, following the winding path of the creek as it flows through the forest. They navigate the rocky terrain along the water's edge, helping each other across the more treacherous parts of the path. Suddenly, the young physician stops, a strange sensation washing over him as he looks ahead with wide eyes. He asks the others if they smell something unusual, and they confirm that a strange odor has been growing stronger. They continue onward, the air growing thick with the foul smell as they get closer to the source of the contamination. As they walk, they notice that their shoes are sinking into the ground, which has become soft and muddy. The disciple covers his nose, overwhelmed by the stench, and observes that all the nearby trees are dead and withered. They cautiously approach a clearing ahead, where the source of the smell seems to be originating from. A wave of dark purple energy washes over the area, and the young man shields himself from the malevolent force. He looks down in horror, realizing that the very soil beneath their feet is rotting and decaying. The ground beneath them shifts and writhes, and the disciple stumbles back in shock as he feels a powerful presence. He takes a ready stance, sensing that something is buried just beneath the corrupted soil. With a look of grim determination, he realizes that he must uncover whatever is hidden in this foul place. His mind flashes back to a time when he worked in an herb storage, a place that also held the remains of plants and animals. Despite the presence of death in the form of dried herbs, the storage room always had a comforting medicinal smell. He had grown to like that particular scent, a fragrance that represented the potential for healing and life. He stands in the memory of the herb room, surrounded by pouches of medicine hanging from the ceiling. To him, it was the smell of death that held the key to life, a scent that promised recovery and hope. Snapping back to the present, he grabs a sturdy branch and begins to dig into the rotting earth with fierce determination. He uncovers a horrifying sight: the remains of countless animals, their bones scattered in the corrupted soil. The group works together, digging up the animal carcasses from several pits near the edge of the creek. He instructs the others to help him move the remains away from the water to prevent further contamination. Jusen discovers a large animal leg that has been deliberately chopped off and buried, pointing it out to the elder. They realize they are dealing with a potent corpse poison, so strong that even slight exposure causes severe illness. Unlike natural poisons, this one doesn't bring instant death, but instead corrupts the land and spreads a slow, agonizing plague. The culprit knew exactly how corpse poison worked, using its slow-acting nature to create a devastating plague. By timing the contamination with the drying of the well, their goal was clearly the complete annihilation of the village. The disciple stands horrified, realizing the sheer evil of the plan as the two villagers behind him begin to show signs of sickness. A sudden crack of a twig snaps him out of his shock, and he turns to see who is approaching. A large masked figure appears, carrying a basket on his back and holding a bloody sack and a sharp knife. The man angrily demands to know what they are doing to the field he worked so hard to prepare. The villagers are stunned, recognizing the man as Physician Yame, the supposedly kind doctor who had disappeared. The young physician puts the pieces together. Yame knew about corpse poison and used the outbreak to collect money. He realizes that the smiling physician was a demon in human skin, the true culprit behind the entire tragedy. He is disgusted that Yame's greed was so vast that he was willing to sacrifice an entire village for his own gain. A monstrous image of a pig devouring the village flashes in his mind, symbolizing the doctor's insatiable avarice. Physician Yame stands defiantly, his hand resting on his knife as he glares at the group that has uncovered his dark secret. Filled with righteous fury, the young man vows to kill the man for his shameless and evil deeds. He readies his staff, but before he can act, a hand grabs his shoulder, and he turns to see the village elder. The elder, now enraged, lifts a rotting goat's head and accuses Physician Yame of creating the disease and pretending to treat people. Unfazed, Physician Yame calmly looks up at the goat head being brandished in his face. He smirks, admitting that he's been nice all along and only wanted to collect his rightful share in the end. The elder roars in fury, questioning how he could call it a share after so many people have died because of his actions. He swings the heavy goat skull down with all his might, aiming to crush the corrupt physician. However, the goat skull shatters into pieces just before it hits its target, stopped by an unseen force. The evil physician stands unharmed, having effortlessly dodged the attack, much to the elder's surprise. Two more masked figures suddenly appear, armed and ready to fight, as Yeom mockingly asks why he should care about the dead. He glares at the group, stating that all he cares about is that they've ruined his hard work. He declares that they will now pay the price with their lives, tossing the remains of the goat head aside. With a crazed look in his eyes, he reveals that he was planning to throw their bodies into the poison pit anyway. The three men ready their makeshift weapons, preparing to defend themselves against the physician and his henchmen. The village elder trembles with rage, his eyes hidden in shadow as he grips his club tightly. He lets out a furious shout and stomps his foot on the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Physician Yeom notices the 3 knots on the elder's belt, a sign that he is a branch master of the beggars sect. The elder unleashes his full power, roaring that he is a guardian from the beggars sect, ready to deliver justice. Physician Yeom is shocked, realizing he has severely underestimated his opponent. The elder stands ready to fight, facing off against Yeom and his 2 henchmen, while the young physician and Jusun stand back. Yeom's accomplices panic, complaining that they were told they would only be facing weaklings, not a guardian of the beggars sect. The powerful energy radiating from the elder forces the 3 villains to take a step back, sensing the danger. The guardian grips his club and gives the henchman an ultimatum, saying he will count to 10 for them to make a choice. He declares that the only one who needs to die is Physician Yeom, and he doesn't wish to cause any more deaths in the village. He swings his club ready for battle and urges the 2 men to make the right choice and abandon their corrupt master. As the elder begins his countdown, the young physician looks on in awe at the immense power he is witnessing. He is stunned that the old man was able to intimidate his opponents with just a shout. Recognizing his true strength, Jusun suddenly turns to the disciple, his face grim, and tells him that he must run away immediately. The young man is shocked by the sudden request, questioning why he would need to flee the scene. Jusun explains his plan. He will throw the physician over the stream, and he must run as fast as he can to warn the village. He instructs him not to look back as the elder continues his countdown, the tension rising with each passing second. The disciple argues that as pinnacle realm martial artists, they should be able to handle the situation easily. He glances back, confused, as the elder reaches the count of 3, not understanding the true gravity of the danger they are in. He realizes with a shock that Jusun and the elder are not pinnacle realm masters, as their power levels don't match his expectations. Jusun calmly explains that regardless of their strength, he and his master have no choice but to fight for their home. Physician Yeom tries to rally his men, reminding them that they are only facing 2 beggars and 1 physician. The elder's countdown continues, his voice booming as he shouts the number 4, his patience wearing thin. The young physician understands that Jusun intends to die fighting, and he wonders why a seemingly weak beggar would go to such lengths. He suggests that they all run together, believing that if they can reach his master, they will all be safe. But Jusun grabs him, preventing him from rushing into the fight as the countdown reaches 5. He explains that they don't have the skills to protect him while escaping, and their only option is for him to run alone. He begs the young physician to protect the village alongside his master, entrusting him with their last hope. He speaks of their lives as beggars, saying they have never felt shame because the villagers' generosity has always sustained them. As the elder reaches the count of 6, Jusun recalls his master's words, a promise to fight for the villagers when the time comes. He looks out over the village, a place that has been his home and his reason for living, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice. The countdown reaches 7, and Yeom's henchmen, spurred by their gambling debts, decide to take their chances and attack. They charge forward with a battle cry, knowing that they only live once and that this is their only way out. Physician Yeom grins, seeing that his men have chosen to fight, and prepares to join the fray. With a firm grip, Jusun shoves the young physician back, urging him to leave the fight to them. The 3 villains leap forward to attack, as Jusun desperately begs the young doctor to go. He throws the young disciple into the air with all his might, sending him flying away from the danger. Soaring backward, the youth looks on in shock, realizing he is being ordered to run for his life. He lands hard on the ground, asking what will happen to them as the opponents charge forward. The elder and Jusen rush into battle, confirming that the disciple's only mission is to escape. The young man continues to fly through the air, watching his two allies bravely face the three men. He lands and looks back, thinking that if he joins the fight, they might stand a chance to win. With a determined expression, he considers turning back to help them, ignoring the order to flee. Before he can move, a blade suddenly flashes past his face, swung by one of Yeom's henchmen. The attacker brings his weapon down while the others fight Jusen and the elder near the creek. The disciple just barely dodges the blow as the blade slams into the ground right beside him. The man who attacked him smirks, confident that he has the young physician cornered and defenseless. However, the disciple uses the opening to get to his feet and sprints away into the nearby forest. He runs as fast as he can, panting as he tells himself that following their orders was the right choice. He has a grim vision of Jusen and the elder defeated, trying to convince himself that he is just running away. As he flees, he questions what he can do when he has only just started learning martial arts. He tells himself he is simply fulfilling their request and must deliver the message to save the village. The young man thinks of his master, certain that he would not be running if he were a pinnacle realm expert. He pants while running through the forest, his mind filled with conflicting thoughts and growing doubt. His eyes widen as a sudden realization dawns on him, the weight of his decision pressing down. Stopping in a clearing, he recalls that Jusen chose to stay and fight despite not being a powerful master. With a determined look, the disciple turns around, his resolve hardening as he makes a new choice. The rustling of leaves marks his change of heart as he prepares to head back to the fight. He sprints back through the forest path, no longer fleeing from danger but rushing straight towards it. Pushing himself to his limit, he races back, determined to stand with his newfound allies. He recalls a time he helped a bullied child, feeling proud like a hero even though he got beaten up. But now, he finds himself wishing the road were longer, hoping the fight would be over when he arrives. The disciple admits that he is filled with cowardly thoughts, a stark contrast to his past self. Despite his fear, he continues running toward the battle, pushing through his own hesitation. He finally arrives back at the creek, watching from a distance as Jusen and the elder fight the three villains. The young man knows that if he turns his back on them now, he will be doomed to a life of endlessly running away. In the thick of the fight, the village guardian throws a powerful punch, his face a mask of fierce determination. The disciple peeks out from behind a tree, his mind racing as he tries to figure out how he can possibly help them. Jusen holds his staff at the ready, breathing heavily as he prepares to face his opponents. Physician Yahello smirks, confident in his victory as he brandishes his sword and prepares to strike. He rushes forward, closing the distance between him and Jusen with a swift, aggressive charge. Jusen reacts by leaping into the air, positioning himself to bring his staff down with incredible force. With a determined shout, he unleashes a technique called Evil Hound Blaze upon his enemy. His staff connects with one henchman's sword, but Physician Yahello uses the opening to launch a surprise attack from the side. Jusen is caught off guard, his eyes widening in shock as he sees the other blade swinging toward him. He twists his body to block the unexpected strike, the impact jarring him as steel meets wood. The young warrior grits his teeth, struggling to hold his ground against the powerful, relentless assault. Physician Yahello acknowledges that the beggar is tough, showing a hint of surprise at his opponent's strength. He follows up with a powerful spinning attack, mocking Jusen and challenging him to run away. Jusen barely manages to block the heavy sword, his eyes wide with strain as he struggles to hold the line. The force of the blow shatters his staff, sending him reeling backward as the elder shouts his name in alarm. The old man yells at his disciple to get up and pull himself together, urging him to keep fighting. Before he can react, the elder is struck by a powerful blow that sends him flying backward. A henchman with an axe closes in, telling the guardian that this is no time to be worrying about others. The villain grins maliciously as the old man hits the ground, barely managing to catch himself with his hands. The axe wielder scoffs at their determination, calling their struggle to the bitter end pathetic. The elder angrily retorts that even crawling through filth or corpses is better than being complete trash. The henchman dismisses his words, declaring that both he and Jusen are dead meat and should just give up. He then cruelly asks if the old man wants to watch his disciple get hacked up to be used as fertilizer. The elder glares up from the ground as his opponent calls him a pathetic, greedy old man. Jusen watches the exchange, his expression hardening with resolve despite the overwhelming odds against them. He defiantly stomps his foot on the ground, showing that he has no intention of surrendering to the villains. The young warrior calls the idea of giving up nonsense, his broken staff lying uselessly on the ground nearby. Seeing the elder is defenseless, the henchman leaps forward with his axe raised, ready to deliver the final blow. Just as the axe is about to fall, Jusen shouts for him to hold it, his voice filled with desperation. A sudden, powerful force sends the henchman flying, while Physician Yom is also knocked back in the chaos. The axe wielder quickly recovers and charges again, yelling at the fallen elder to just die already. At the same time, Physician Yom presses his attack on Jusen, their weapons clashing in a furious exchange. Lying on the ground, the old man clenches his fist around a handful of dirt, a last-ditch effort to turn the tide. As the axe wielder charges, the elder flings the dirt into his face, creating a crucial opening. The villain flinches, momentarily blinded by the sudden spray of earth and grit in his eyes. A brief memory flashes through the elder's mind of him and a young Jusen looking over their home. Back in the present, the henchman shouts in surprise as the dirt hits him, completely caught off guard. Seizing the opportunity, the elder lunges forward and tackles his opponent, locking him in a tight embrace. Enraged, the villain growls that the old man has finally decided to die, raising his axe high. Jusen watches in horror as the henchman brings the weapon down on the defenseless elder. The old man's hands are clasped firmly, refusing to let go even as the sharp blade descends. With a final agonizing cry, he takes the full force of the axe strike directly in his back. Jusen screams, his face contorted in anguish as he witnesses his master's ultimate sacrifice. Jusen is frozen in shock, looking up at the tragic scene unfolding before him. The henchman strikes again, and Jusen can only curse as the elder takes another brutal blow. Mortally wounded, the elder calls out to his disciple, his teeth clenched in agony and determination. He tells Jusen that now is the time for him to earn his keep, accepting his own fate. Fueled by rage, Jusen grabs a piece of his broken staff and leaps toward the villain. The elder looks on, a mixture of pain and pride in his eyes as he watches his student's final stand. As Jusen attacks the axe wielder, Physician Yum charges in from the side, aiming to strike him down. Suddenly, a rock flies through the air and smacks Physician Yum directly in the head, stopping his attack. The young physician has returned to the fight, his face set with grim determination as he prepares another stone. Physician Yum stumbles back, cursing the disciple for interfering with his plan. Jusen seizes the moment, bringing his weapon down with full force and crushing the henchman's face. The disciple stands ready as the battlefield shifts, with Jusen finishing one foe while another is down. He watches Jusen, who now stands panting, holding the bloodied remnant of his staff. Physician Yum gets to his feet, glaring at the young physician with a look of pure shock and anger. He angrily tells the disciple he should have stayed away, now charging forward to kill the boy who returned. Physician Yum leaps into the air, vowing to chop the young man up as he swings his sword down. The disciple looks up in sheer terror, frozen in place and unable to defend himself from the attack. Before the blade can connect, his master appears in a flash, blocking the corrupt doctor's path. The elder calmly remarks that his student really did come all this way just to find a disease. With the fight over, the disciple looks at the aftermath, calling out to his master in relief. A short distance away, Jusen cradles the fallen guardian, crying as he mourns his master's sacrifice. The master's gaze hardens as he takes in the scene, his expression turning cold and serious. The young man points at their captive, confirming that he is Dr. Yum, the man behind the plague. Yum trembles on the ground in fear as the disciple shouts that he is the true culprit. The master looks down at the terrified man, his voice calm as he asks if the accusation is true. With a simple gesture, he uses his internal energy to force the corrupt physician to his knees. The elder then demands to know why he created the plague, his eyes fixed on the man below him. His student angrily explains that Yum did it for money, kicking him as the man begs for mercy. The master questions his true motives, asking what his real goal was besides collecting cash. Yum quickly agrees to talk, offering them powerful medicine in a desperate plea to spare his life. He then asks if they have ever heard of a legendary herb called the black peony. The young disciple is shocked, recognizing the name of the incredibly rare and powerful medicine. The black peony is a supreme medicine that blooms with powerful Yun energy in a world of chaos. It is known as the hero's flower, an elite elixir just one step below the legendary Dihuandan. In order to cultivate it, the flower must grow on a battlefield, feeding on the remains of the fallen. The corrupt doctor offers up the legendary flower, insisting that he has the real black peony. He gestures toward a dark cave, where a faint purple glow emanates from within its depths. Inside, a single black peony blooms, its petals radiating a powerful and mystical energy. The disciple is stunned, wondering if Yoam went through all this trouble just to trade the flower for his life. The young man angrily says that Yoam's real plan was to kill anyone who touched the flower. Before he can continue his rant, his master grabs his shoulder, telling him to calm down. The elder explains that the true black peony grows by feeding on death, which is why Yoam gathered bodies. If an ordinary person touches the flower, they will be overwhelmed by its powerful energy and die. Yoam confirms this, adding that if all the villagers had died, their bodies would have become food for the flower. He planned to poison them all, buying time to harvest the flower and use it for his own dark purposes. Yoam quickly denies the accusation, claiming he planned to process the difficult herb and offer it to them. The master smiles, remarking that for a village doctor, Yoam certainly has some deep knowledge. The corrupt physician laughs nervously, trying to downplay his expertise as nothing but a cheap trick. The elder then turns his attention to the black peony, adding that it's too bad Yoam's plan had a flaw. He casually plucks the flower from the ground, declaring that he is not an ordinary person. Yoam stammers in shock, warning the elder that touching the flower bare-handed will surely kill him. But his warning is useless, as the master swiftly defeats him without suffering any ill effects. The two of them walk past the fallen doctor, their grim task in the village finally nearing its end. Holding the flower, the master calmly states that he will handle matters of life and death himself. He then looks out at the mountains, complaining about why so many trashy doctors keep appearing. Dark purple energy seems to emanate from the defeated physician as the elder continues his rant. He wonders if these people think that simply learning medicine automatically makes them real physicians. The young disciple looks on with concern, asking his master if what he's doing is truly okay. The elder confidently reassures him, asking if he thinks he got his infamous nickname just from gambling. He orders his student to take Jusen back while he absorbs the toxins from the corpse and the flower. The disciple does as he's told, placing a reassuring hand on Jusen's shoulder as he looks back with concern. The master sits in a meditative posture, the black peony resting in his lap as he prepares to begin. He holds his hands out, and a powerful wave of dark purple energy begins to swirl around him. The evil energy from the corrupted ground rises up, drawn toward the master's immense power. It takes the form of ghostly animals, the souls of the creatures used to create the deadly corpse poison. The young disciple watches in amazement as the intense poison is sucked into his master's body. He shields his face from the overwhelming force, commenting on the sheer intensity of the poison. The dark energy swirls into a massive vortex, its power threatening to overwhelm everything in its path. The young physician's eyes are wide with a mix of fear and awe at the incredible display of control. The swirling vortex of evil energy condenses into a single pulsating mass, its power contained. The master opens his eyes, his expression calm and focused as he completes the difficult process. The disciple tentatively asks if it's over, still reeling from the incredible sight he just witnessed. The elder then asks if he saw that, wanting to make sure his student understood the lesson. He explains that only at this level can one truly call it energy manipulation, as the flower turns white. He then offers the purified flower to his student, who looks on in a state of complete shock. He explains that he has absorbed all the poison, so his student can now take the flower without side effects. The master adds that the boy is more than qualified to receive it since he uncovered the physician's plot. The elder then closes his eyes, thinking to himself that it doesn't matter as long as he deals with the poison. The disciple's gaze falls upon Jusan, who is still mourning the loss of his master. He turns back to his teacher, insisting that he is not qualified at all to receive such a powerful reward. The young man says he just ran off and only came back to throw a rock, afraid of being called a coward. The master points to Jusan, asking why he looks at the disciple like he really is qualified. He explains that it's harder to come back after running away than to face things head-on. One can only do that if they confront their duty and accept their mistakes, a true sign of courage. He adds that only an idiot wouldn't run, and that in the end, not turning away from duty is enough. The young disciple is moved by his master's words, his expression a mixture of surprise and gratitude. He looks down at the glowing white flower, a powerful elixir that now represents his growth and courage. His master jokes that he may have given away too much wisdom, pleased with his student's progress. The young man, lost in thought, impulsively eats the flower while the elder is still talking. The master is stunned, asking why he ate it now, to which the disciple nervously asks if he wasn't supposed to. The disciple panics, his face a mask of shock as the full weight of his mistake settles in. They begin their journey back to the village, the air heavy with the aftermath of the recent battle. The master scolds his student for eating an elixir without knowing the proper cultivation method. He tells him to stand steady and mind his breath and posture, using the Xuanwu divine art he was taught. He sighs, calling his student an idiot for being so reckless despite his intelligence. The elder then gives him detailed instructions on how to properly circulate his energy to absorb the flower. The disciple shouts back that he's already doing it right, frustrated by his master's constant nagging. He focuses on his posture and breathing, trying to follow the complex instructions as best he can. The master watches him with a critical eye, pleased with his student's progress but still pushing him harder. A powerful light blue aura begins to surround the young man as he successfully channels the elixir's energy. His teacher explains that he will gather his energy before they reach the village to be ready for anything. He adds that if the boy trains well, he will gain a powerful new ability from the black peony. The young man feels the incredible surge of power, his eyes wide with amazement at the flower's effects. The master watches, secretly impressed by the tremendous power his student is now able to wield. He dismisses his student's excitement, telling him he has a long way to go and must keep practicing. The master tells Juson he seems fine now and should help drag one of the bodies, but Juson pretends his stomach still hurts. As the sun rises, the villagers of Jewel gather outside, their faces a mixture of hope and uncertainty. The young disciple stands before the crowd, preparing to share the good news, while the others stand by with the fallen elder. He announces that the plague will soon be gone, promising that the herbal decoction will have them recovered within 3 days. The villagers erupt into cheers and applause, their expressions filled with joy, but Juson looks down with a heavy heart. While the disciple is surrounded by the grateful villagers, Juson quietly walks away, carrying the body of his master. The elder watches him go, a somber and thoughtful look on his face as he observes the bittersweet scene. Alone against the warm glow of the sun, Juson stands silently with his master's body, his journey of mourning just beginning. He turns his back to the celebrating village and begins to walk away, seeking a place to lay the guardian to rest. His solitary figure moves away from the stretcher, leaving the footprints of the villagers and the past behind him. He continues his solemn walk, carrying the weight of his grief as he moves further into the wilderness. The village of Jewel, now saved from the plague, rests peacefully in the valley, a symbol of the elder's sacrifice. Meanwhile, back in the village, smoke rises from the rooftops as life slowly begins to return to normal. The young physician holds a branch that glows with a faint green aura, using his energy to prepare the cure. In a ready stance, he channels his power into large pots, brewing the life-saving medicine for the remaining patients. Sometime later, the disciple practices his staff techniques, honing his newfound skills and power. He suddenly senses his master approaching and wonders what he's up to now. His curiosity piqued. The elder scolds him for kicking up dust near the decoction, but the youth complains about the sword training. His teacher tells him to pack up, as they have a long way to go, but the disciple protests, wanting to stay. He suggests they stay for 5 more days, secretly hoping to be pampered as a hero by the grateful villagers. The master explains that he never planned to come to the village and only stopped because Juson asked. The disciple is shocked, asking why a hero who saved the village would now be starving somewhere. The elder explains that a beggar who kills, even for a good reason, is common in their guild. He continues, saying that once a beggar kills, it is no longer begging, but something else entirely. With a somber look, he clarifies that it becomes a tribute, a heavy price for taking a life. The disciple asks what will happen to Juson now, his voice filled with concern for the village hero. The master states that he will have to choose his own path, for that is the nature of killing. The villagers gather to say their goodbyes, their faces filled with gratitude as they wave to their saviors. The disciple waves back happily, while his master walks on, his thoughts already on their next journey. The two of them leave Jewel village behind, continuing their wanderings as master and student. The disciple turns to his master, a look of understanding on his face as he realizes their final task. They arrive at the village graveyard, a quiet place of rest where the past and present meet. The master spots Juan sitting by a freshly dug grave and announces that they have found him. The young warrior stands before his master's grave, his hands clasped in a gesture of respect and mourning. The two newcomers bow their heads, paying their respects to the fallen guardian of Jewel village. The master remains silent for a moment, his thoughts turning to the brave man who gave his life for his home. Juan thanks them for coming, saying that he owes them a great debt and wishing them a peaceful journey ahead. The disciple asks if he has been at the grave all night and if he has eaten anything. He offers Juan a wrapped meal, which the grieving man accepts with a quiet word of thanks. The young physician asks if he will continue to stay in the village, to which Juan confirms he will. He then adds that it's okay, because surviving however you can is what being a beggar is all about. The disciple recalls his master's words about the nature of killing, his expression turning thoughtful. He then offers Juan a new path, inviting him to come with them on their journey. The young man promises to take him somewhere he can beg freely, adding that the elder would have wanted that. He turns to his master for approval, a hopeful and eager smile on his face as Juan looks on in confusion. Juan is moved by the offer, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and gratitude as he agrees to join them. The two young men run to catch up with the master, who scolds them for leaving without a word. The elder tells his student to keep practicing his divine art, but the disciple eagerly asks for sword training instead. Juan asks where they are headed, while the master comments that he thought his student would never ask. The disciple then asks for their destination, while his teacher smugly remarks that a genius should know. The elder finally reveals their next stop, announcing that they are heading to the city of Luoyang. Their destination is home to a legendary technique known as the sword that pierces the heart. The master explains that while the name is plain, it is the sword style closest to the true essence of combat. He demonstrates one of the core stances, a swift and precise move he calls the Sparrow Wasp. The next stance he shows them is Ivy, a fluid and unpredictable technique that mimics the plant's movements. Finally, he demonstrates Point, a powerful and direct thrust that embodies the essence of the style. He tells them that these three stances are the foundation of the legendary heart-piercing sword style. The master then unleashes a massive wave of energy, showcasing the incredible power of the technique. Jusan and the disciple are left speechless, their faces a mask of awe and disbelief at the master's skill. He turns to them with a confident smile, asking if they think they can master the difficult sword style. Both Jusan and the disciple stare blankly, their expressions a mixture of confusion and exhaustion. The young man explodes in frustration, shouting that he has no idea how he's supposed to master the technique. He argues with his master, saying that he's only been training for a month and can't possibly send a tree flying. Jusan watches their bickering, his face a mask of weary amusement as they go back and forth. Frustrated, the disciple asks Jusan to try the stance, confident that his own form is correct. The master praises Jusan's perfect form, much to the disciple's annoyance, who claims it looks the same. He then tells his student to try again, continuing to correct his posture with a critical eye. The two bicker some more, with the master calling his student greedy and the disciple telling him to respect his elders. Their days are filled with intense training, practicing the secret serpent step every morning. In the evenings, they focus on the purple cloud steps, honing their footwork and agility until sundown. After a month of sparring, Jusan has won all 30 matches, much to the disciple's dismay. Jusan observes the strange and complex relationship between the master and his student. He finds it odd how their dynamic shifts from respectful to playfully antagonistic in an instant. At times, they seem like a close master and disciple, working together in perfect harmony. But in a flash, they're like an uncle and nephew, constantly mocking and teasing each other. They seem to treat everything as a joke, constantly teasing and mocking each other with mischievous grins. But beneath that playful exterior, there is a deep, hidden respect and expectation between master and student. Jusan thinks to himself that he also had a master like that, one who pushed him to be his best. He remembers his own teacher, the man who guided him and shaped him into the person he is today. As they prepare to part ways, Jusan politely offers the elder dinner, much to the disciple's amusement. The master advises Jusan to change his name if he settles in Chongqing to avoid trouble from the Juril village incident. Their journey brings them to the gates of Chongqing, a bustling city where Jusun will begin his new life. He thanks them for all their help, and the master replies that they will see each other again if fate allows. Jusun bows his head in a final gesture of gratitude and respect, his heart filled with a mix of sadness and hope. He watches them go, waving a final goodbye as they disappear into the crowded, rainy streets. The people of Chongqing rush through the rain, their faces a blur as the two travelers continue on their way. The disciple looks back with a hint of sadness, watching his new friend start a new chapter of his life. His master teases him for being sad about losing his sparring partner, whom he could never beat. The young man's face flushes with annoyance, but he can't deny the truth in his teacher's words. He silently vows to become stronger, determined to one day surpass his master and his friend. The disciple yells in frustration, claiming he almost won their last match, but his master has already vanished. He calls out for his teacher, who tells him to stop whining and follow as they walk through the rainy city. Their journey leads them to a small, unassuming building with a sign that reads, "Feng Family Smithy." The elderly blacksmith is shocked by their request to borrow his forge, his eyes wide with disbelief. The master explains that the price for using the forge is the right to watch his student work. He boasts that the blacksmith will get to see the world's greatest metallurgy from a ringside seat. The old man reluctantly agrees, and the two travelers enter the forge, ready to begin their work. The master and disciple raid the smithy for materials, much to the blacksmith's annoyance. The elder eagerly accepts the blacksmith's request for a sickle, much to his student's confusion. The young man grumbles about the sudden request, but his master tells him to stop complaining and get to work. He reminds his student of their deal, that he would pay for his training with goods and services. The disciple admits that he has never made a sickle before, but he knows he must fulfill his end of the bargain. Smoke billows from the smithy's chimney as the young man begins his work, the fire of the forge burning bright. The blacksmith listens intently to the sound of the hammering, his ear catching the rhythmic beat. He remarks that the sound goes well with the rain and that the young man will make a decent blacksmith. The blacksmith reminisces about his youth, a nostalgic look in his eyes as he recalls his early days. Suddenly, his eyes snap open, his expression a mixture of shock and disbelief at what he sees. A perfectly crafted sickle glows with a faint blue aura, its blade sharp and its handle sturdy. He takes the tool from the young man, his voice trembling as he stammers in amazement. The disciple explains that it's his first time making a sickle and asks if it's enough to be considered payment. The blacksmith's hand closes around the handle, his fingers tracing the smooth, expertly crafted lines. He raises the sickle high, a look of awe on his face as he examines the incredible workmanship. With a sudden, powerful swing, he brings the blade down on a nearby bamboo raft, much to the disciple's surprise. The sharp steel slices through the thick bamboo with ease, leaving a clean and perfect cut. The disciple asks if the blacksmith has become a master, impressed by the old man's sudden display of skill. The blade cuts through the ropes holding the raft together, its sharpness a testament to the young smith's talent. The disciple calls out to the elder, asking where he is going as the old man walks away with the bamboo. The master tells him not to worry and to get ready to forge the sword, adding that they will be here soon. The young man realizes his mistake, a look of concern on his face as he understands the true situation. He turns to see a group of shadowy figures approaching, their presence sending a chill down his spine. The disciple has a dark premonition, sensing the evil intent of the approaching figures. The blacksmith demands to know who they are. As the group of men surround the smithy, the young man looks on nervously, unsure of how to respond to the sudden and aggressive intrusion. The leader of the group, a man with stars in his eyes, asks how on earth he made the incredible weapon. Another man, his eyes also filled with stars, holds up a sword, its blade intricately designed. He explains that the sickle can cut through weapons made by the best swordsmiths in Chongqing. The blacksmith declares that it can slice through them like tofu, without a single nick on its blade. The group of men bow their heads, begging the young man to teach them his incredible technique. Their eyes sparkle with greed as they offer to do anything, just to have a weapon made by him. They begin to argue amongst themselves, each one demanding that their own weapon be forged first. The blacksmith peeks out from behind the master, a look of fear and uncertainty on his face. The master holds out his hand, a silent and intimidating gesture that immediately quiets the crowd. He announces that the entrance fee to watch the young man work is 2 silver taels, a smug grin on his face. The group of men eagerly pay the fee, their desire for a superior weapon outweighing their greed. As the rain continues to fall, the young man prepares to forge his next masterpiece, the city's best smiths watching in awe. Jusan wanders through a rainy city, the sound of the downpour matching the heavy mood in his heart. He walks along a canal, realizing with a mix of awe and sorrow that this is his late master's hometown. The city is as vast as the elder had described, making him wonder where the familiar hemp field might be. As he scans the area, his eyes fall upon a group of men dressed in black, gathered on a nearby bridge. He clutches the knotted rope from his master's belt, a tangible reminder of the man who raised him. Tears stream down his face, his grief mixing with the falling rain as he feels the weight of his loss. With renewed purpose, he decides his first step is to find someone who knew the guardian he misses so much. In the rainy city of Chongqing, Jusen leaves a grand building after speaking with the local branch leader of the beggars' sect. The leader smiles warmly, saying that disciples of their sect are always welcome, though his welcome feels transactional. Jusen glances back with a polite smile, his true thoughts hidden as he prepares to depart into the wet streets. Once alone, his expression hardens, the friendly facade dropping as he contemplates his next move in the unfamiliar city. He walks down a long road, realizing this place is completely different from the beggars' sect his late master had described. A memory of the branch leader surfaces, demanding a hefty initiation fee for anyone wishing to join the sect in Chongqing. Jusen finds the idea absurd, wondering why a righteous sect would require someone to pay money just to become a beggar. He continues walking, convinced that no one on this street would remember his master after so much time has passed. Spotting a group of beggars by a wall, he decides to try his luck, asking an older man if he knows the nickname Mahjong Guy. He explains that the man he seeks was in Chongqing about 20 years ago, hoping the information will jog a memory. The other beggars listen with interest when he mentions the man was a four-knot member of their sect. Seeing their confused looks, Jusen forces a smile, assuming they don't know the person he is looking for. He thanks them for their time and walks away along the water's edge, his search seemingly hitting another dead end. Stopping by the stone wall, he looks down at the knotted rope from his master's belt, wondering if anyone remembers him at all. As he stands lost in thought, an old beggar accidentally bumps into him while passing by. The man shivers and complains about the cold, paying little attention to the young warrior he just passed. Jusen watches him for a moment, then decides to ask one last person before giving up completely for the day. He calls out to the man, who turns around with a startled expression, surprised to be addressed. Jusen repeats his question, asking if he knows a four-knot member named Mahjong Guy who was here 20 years ago. The old man's eyes widen slightly as he repeats the name, asking if this person was a dozen or so years older than him. Jusen's face lights up with excitement as he eagerly confirms that the old man is indeed talking about his master. The man continues, recalling a tidy beggar who was always found in the hemp fields, and the young warrior confirms this is the one. However, the elder then claims he must be mistaken, revealing that Mahjong Guy was merely a one-knot beggar, leaving Jusen utterly confused. The young man stands frozen in disbelief by the water, the shocking words echoing in his mind as rain falls around him. The old beggar explains that martial arts are required from the third knot rank, but his master never learned any because he was too clumsy to find a teacher. He adds that the name Mahjong Guy came from his habit of rolling around in the hemp fields every single day. The elder then remembers that when he was younger, a group of beggars came looking for the man Jusen seeks. They claimed he had stolen something valuable before running away, suggesting he ask an old woman downstream for more details. Jusen's eyes fill with rage and shock as he clutches the knotted rope, the symbol of his master's lies which he had cherished for so long. A powerful wave of energy erupts from his body as he curses, the truth hitting him with the force of a physical blow. He tightens his grip on the rope, cursing the beggar who raised him and left him with a legacy of deceit. Biting down on the rope in fury, he remembers the ridiculous reasons for the knots, one for enduring hunger and another for surviving a fever. The rope lies soaked on the ground, its knots no longer a symbol of rank, but a monument to his master's lies. The third knot was supposedly for turning 15, a story that now feels like a cruel and pathetic joke. It all suddenly makes sense, and he realizes this is why his master's fighting skills were so incredibly poor. Overwhelmed by the betrayal, he lets out a raw scream, insisting that it's all lies as tears of grief and anger stream down his face. His mind becomes a chaotic storm of curses and fragmented thoughts, his entire world collapsing around him in a flash of blue energy. The violent waves crashing against the stone wall perfectly mirror the tempest of emotions raging within his heart. He rises to his feet, covering his face as he holds the rope, struggling to accept the devastating truth about the man he looked up to. He cursing his master for being a fraud and for dying before he could ever be confronted about his deception. He lets his late master's rope fall into the raging water, a symbolic end to his past and the lies he once believed. His hand trembles as the rope sinks, the last physical connection to the man who raised him now gone forever. Tears of betrayal and sorrow stream down his face, his heart heavy with the weight of the truth. Alone on the shore, he curls into a ball, his grief echoing the storm that rages around him in the desolate landscape. Sometime later, a sign for the Feng family metallurgy appears, marking a shift in the story to a different location. The young physician, now training with his master, holds up a newly forged sword and announces that the day's demonstration is over. The crowd of blacksmiths watching him erupts in protest, disappointed that the incredible display has ended so soon. An older man tries to calm them down, reminding everyone that the young master needs his rest, but they are eager to learn more. His student sweats nervously as the blacksmiths continue to pester him, completely ignoring his master's absence. The young man's eyes dart around the room, a look of panic on his face as he realizes he's on his own. His gaze falls upon Jusan, who has been quietly watching the scene from the back of the room. Outside the smithy, Jusan looks up at the sign, a thoughtful and somber expression on his face. He now understands the truth about Elder Mashon Ge, his late master, and the pieces of the puzzle fall into place. He sits down beside the young physician, who watches him with a mixture of concern and curiosity. The student asks Jusan if he has eaten, worried about his well-being after the emotional turmoil he has endured. Jusan reveals that a young boy named Sosian, who also lives under a bridge, shared some of his food with him. He explains that while he had no appetite, he couldn't bring himself to refuse a gift from a fellow beggar. Suddenly, the young physician hits him on the shoulder, calling him an idiot for his actions. He angrily scolds Jusan for taking food from a child, especially since he is no longer a member of the beggar's sect. Jusan looks up in confusion, as his new friend demands they go somewhere. The young physician smiles smugly, his eyes sparkling with mischief as he plans his next move. He tells Jusan they are going somewhere to wash the beggar stench off him, taking him to a lavish restaurant under the moonlight. Inside, the place is bustling with people enjoying food and drink, the atmosphere filled with lively music. On a small stage, a woman in a pink robe plays a traditional instrument, her song adding to the vibrant scene. Jusan, now dressed in a clean blue robe, looks completely captivated by the beautiful music and dazzling surroundings. The young disciple shouts Jusan's name, snapping him out of his trance and pulling him back to the present moment. He urges his new friend to drink up, declaring that they will eat and drink until they can't move. The two of them indulge in the feast, enjoying the music and the lively atmosphere of the restaurant. The disciple's excitement gets the better of him, and he accidentally breathes fire after taking a large swig of alcohol. The musician on stage glares at them, clearly annoyed by their loud and disruptive behavior. Jusan winks, finding the spicy food delicious, but his companion teases him, thinking he was about to be sick. The student reminds Jusan that he is one of the 3 great physicians and warns him not to leave any food behind. A bottle of wine sits on the table, a silent invitation for them to continue their night of indulgence. Jusan playfully holds 2 empty bowls to his ears, his face a mask of goofy delight as he enjoys the rare treat. They have a contest to see who can stuff the most dumplings in their mouth, a new record being set at 2. The table is soon littered with empty bottles and plates, a testament to their impressive appetites. Both of them lean back, completely stuffed, admitting that they can't possibly eat another bite. Jusan then realizes he's never paid for anything in his life, and he asks how they are going to cover the bill. The musician, overhearing their conversation, stops playing her instrument, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Jusan's companion slams his hands on the table in a panic, shouting at him for not having any money. Jusan panics, reminding his friend that the restaurant is run by the beggar's sect, but the young man confidently dismisses his concerns. A smug smile appears on his face as he reassures his companion, telling him not to worry when he is around. He suddenly bursts into laughter, drawing the attention of everyone in the room as Jusan watches in bewilderment. A strange, powerful energy begins to emanate from the table as he calms down, telling his friend not to worry. With a wide, unnerving grin, he announces that the payment is about to begin, unsheathing a small, sharp dagger. His eyes glow with a sinister light as he holds the blade, his expression shifting from goofy to menacing in an instant. The musician on stage looks up in shock, her eyes wide with fear as she sees the glowing dagger in his hand. In a flash, he rushes toward her, spinning with incredible speed as he prepares to perform a bizarre and dangerous trick. Jusan shouts in alarm, completely baffled by his companion's strange and unpredictable behavior. The other patrons, however, seem to find the drunken display amusing, cheering him on as he continues his chaotic performance. A waiter approaches, trying to intervene, but the disciple's intense gaze and the sharp blade in his hand stop him in his tracks. The young man's body contorts as he dodges a series of daggers that seem to appear out of nowhere, pinning his sleeves to the wall. He holds a final dagger to his own neck, shouting for the customer as he puts on a dramatic and terrifying show. A dark, evil energy surrounds him as he stares down with a glowing red eye, his performance taking a sinister turn. The waiter panics, calling for the guards as the disciple's trick becomes a whirlwind of dark energy and flashing blades. With a crazed look in his eyes, he juggles multiple daggers, his movements a blur of deadly skill and drunken abandon. A man from the crowd finally steps in, demanding to know who the young man is and what he's doing. Another patron tries to calm him down, saying it's just some fun, but the man insists that even a drunk should be graceful. The disciple then begins to carve something into the wall with his dagger, much to the crowd's confusion. The man from the crowd glares at him, holding a wine bottle as he questions the young man's bizarre. He spins around, asking what he is doing as he continues his chaotic dance on the stage. The crowd watches in a mixture of confusion and awe, their expressions ranging from shock to amusement. He takes a swig from his wine bottle, his eyes closed in concentration as he carves an intricate design into the wall. With a drunken smile, he asks if he should stop, clearly enjoying the attention and the chaos he is causing. The man from the crowd nervously says no, explaining that he only asked because the music had stopped. He then turns to the musician, telling her not to ruin the Grandmaster's mood, and she reluctantly agrees to play again. As the music resumes, the disciple moves with incredible speed and precision, his dagger a blur of motion. He holds the blade to his own eye, a look of intense focus on his face as he continues his masterpiece. The restaurant is filled with the sound of music and the scrape of the dagger against the wall as the patrons watch, mesmerized. He grips the dagger tightly, his knuckles white as he pours all his energy and concentration into his work. The wall begins to crumble and glow, the carving taking on a life of its own as he nears the end. A magnificent, glowing statue of a thousand-handed deity emerges from the wall, its intricate details shining with golden light. The face of the deity is serene and beautiful, a stark contrast to the chaotic energy that created it. The young disciple declares that the drinks for the night are on him, his grand performance finally complete. Jusan recalls the old man's words, that someone with his talent would be welcomed anywhere in the world. Both he and his companions stare at the masterpiece, their faces a mask of shock and awe at the incredible display. The effect of the thousand-handed guanyin is immediate, as people from all over flock to see the incredible work of art. The disciple proudly presents his work, calling it calligraphy, as the restaurant owner stands beside him, beaming with pride. A patron marvels at the masterpiece, amazed that it was created in such a short amount of time, but the disciple remains focused on his next project. Later, Jusan hands out money to the poor, while his friend sits on a nearby wall, watching him with a knowing smile. He gives a basket of dumplings to the young girl Sosion, who thanks him warmly for his kindness. Jusan smiles, genuinely happy for the first time in a while, his good deed lifting his spirits. The disciple watches from above, a satisfied smile on his face as he sees his friend finally looking happy. Later, the two of them are passed out in their room, the rain pouring down outside as they recover from their night of drinking. The disciple groans about his hangover, suggesting they rest for the day, as he can't remember how long they've been on the move. Jusan agrees, adding that the constant rain makes him not want to go out anyway, and his friend agrees with a laugh. The disciple suddenly sits up, a playful glint in his eye as he considers his next move. Their rest is interrupted by a frantic voice from outside, repeatedly calling for great hero Hong Ju-san. An old man stands in the rain, his face a mask of worry and desperation as he calls out for help. He explains that the little girl Sosion has disappeared, and she's too timid to have gone far on her own in such bad weather. He immediately suspects the Jiangsangche River pirates, his voice filled with fear and certainty. Jusan's expression turns serious as he asks if the old man is sure about his accusation. The man explains that while they first thought the missing children were swept away by the river, many have seen pirates taking them. He adds that there are rumors of unorthodox martial artists buying children for sinister, sacrilegious purposes. His hands tremble as he considers the horrifying possibility that Sosion was taken for such a dark ritual. Jusan places a reassuring hand on the old man's shoulder, his expression hardening with resolve. He promises to investigate, telling the man not to worry and that he knows someone who can help. The old man's face fills with relief and gratitude as he thanks the young hero for his help. Jusan then heads to the local branch of the Beggars sect, telling the old man he will talk to his superiors. He warns him not to expect much, but still insists that as members of the Beggars sect, they should do something to help. The branch leader agrees they should act, but insists they can't clash with pirates without solid proof of kidnapping. He explains that it's a critical time for the sect, a statement that leaves Jusan confused and suspicious. The leader's attitude is completely different from their first meeting, making Jusan wonder if something has changed. He explains that as an outsider, Jusan wouldn't know that the Beggars sect is on high alert every spring flood season. The leader's hand gestures toward the window, emphasizing the severity of the situation as Jusan listens with a skeptical expression. He warns that if the rain continues for one more day, the mighty Yangtze River will surely flood. Floods make people homeless, and it's common for them to be swept away, so the sect is busy building dams to minimize the damage. He promises to talk to his superiors but implies that there is little they can do to help with the pirate situation. Jusan stares out at the rain, his mind filled with doubt as he questions the leader's convenient excuse. He wonders how he can trust the words of those who treat them like beasts just because they are from the Beggars sect. The old man confirms that the sect leaders will indeed build the dams, but only to protect those in power. He bitterly adds that those in charge don't care about the common people who will be most affected by the flood. Jusan argues that as martial artists, they should uphold the principles of chivalry and protect the weak, but the old man scoffs at the idea, pointing out that even pirates and unorthodox sects are martial artists, and they have no chivalry. He adds that in recent years, the Beggars sect has never been heard of fighting pirates, as they won't risk their lives for the unnoticed. He calls them image-conscious bastards, more worried about their status than the lives of the people they are supposed to protect. A memory of his late master's words surfaces, a reminder of the lies and the false sense of duty he once believed in. Jusan's face contorts with rage as he realizes that the entire sect is built on a foundation of lies and hypocrisy. He tells himself there's no need to feel guilty, as he was the only one who listened to the old man's pleas for help. With a grim expression, he decides that it's not their duty, and they have already done enough by trying to get help. He tells himself that he fulfilled his duty at Jewel Village, trying to find some solace in his past actions. But he quickly dismisses the thought, realizing that even that duty was nothing more than a liar's bravado. He walks silently through the rain, his mind a storm of conflicting thoughts and emotions as he tries to make sense of it all. A voice calls out to him, and he stops, his gaze fixed on the ground as he waits to see who is there. He looks up to see an old woman, who asks if he is the one looking for Ma Kyungge. She introduces herself as Granny Yong, and asks about his relationship to the man she calls a bastard. Jusan is shocked to learn that even his master's name was a lie. Another layer of deceit in his already shattered world. Granny Yong scoffs at the idea that his master was a thief, her expression filled with disdain. She insists that he never had sticky fingers, and the one who steals things is someone else entirely, leaving Jusan confused. His eyes widen in shock as he wonders if his master didn't steal things, but people instead. Granny Yong confirms his suspicion, her voice grave as she prepares to tell him the whole story. She explains that it all happened about 20 years ago. during a conflict between two factions in Chongqing. The current deputy chief of the central region, Hyungmyeon Nogai, belongs to the righteous faction, but at the time, the deputy chief was a man named Yubongai, who belonged to the rival Ragged faction. What started as a simple disagreement over clean and dirty clothes soon escalated into a matter of life and death. The two factions clashed in a huge fight, their animosity boiling over into a violent and bloody conflict. In the chaos of the battle, Yubongai was killed, and the Ragged faction was driven out of Chongqing. On that fateful day, Ma Yongai fled, taking Yubongai's infant son with him to protect the child from harm. Jusun stands in the rain, the weight of the truth finally settling in as he processes the incredible story. He asks Granny Yong for Yubongai's full name, his mind racing as he tries to piece together his own past. Granny Yong speaks the name Hong Jung, and the young man stands silently, absorbing the final piece of the puzzle. The old woman notes that since he asked for the name, he must not be looking for the man because of his son. She turns to leave, asking him to tell his master she said hello if he ever sees him again. Jusun is left alone in the downpour, his umbrella dropping to the ground as he processes the devastating truth. Looking up at the stormy sky, he finally accepts that his master's entire identity was a lie. Overcome with emotion, tears stream down his face as he silently questions the reasons for such a deep deception. The raging storm above him perfectly mirrors the turbulent chaos that has been unleashed within his heart. He vents his anger and grief on the roaring river, punching the water with all his might. His hands plunge into the churning waves, as if trying to grasp the shattered pieces of his past. The memory of the straw rope surfaces, a symbol of a rank that never existed, now lost to the depths. He realizes it was never a rope of status, but a bond representing a promise made long ago. With the last physical tie to his master gone, the weight of the truth becomes unbearable. He feels himself drowning in the overwhelming waves of sorrow and betrayal. Submerged in the cold, dark water, his despair threatens to pull him under completely. But in that darkness, a flood of memories brings a new light to his master's sacrifice. He sees the elder as a young man, holding an infant, and bound by a solemn duty to protect him. The memory shifts to his master carrying him away, leaving everything behind to start a new life. He recalls a simple but happy childhood, filled with small moments of genuine care and affection. Even their playful training sessions were a sign of the deep fatherly bond they shared. The bloodied staffs are a final, grim reminder that the rope was tied to protect others, no matter the cost. In his final moments, the elder's face was a mask of fierce determination, a silent promise to protect until the very end. He realizes his master wasn't just a beggar, but a true protector who tied the cord of duty himself. Submerged in the deep, the knotted rope is caught among the reeds, a lifeline in the darkness. Jusun's hands find the rope, his fingers closing around the last tangible piece of his master's legacy. With a surge of newfound strength, he pulls himself upward, fighting to break free from the watery grave. He holds his breath, every muscle straining as he uses the rope to ascend toward the surface. A look of pure resolve is on his face as he battles the crushing pressure and his own inner demons. Bubbles trail behind him, marking his slow but steady journey back to the world of the living. For a moment, his body goes limp, drifting in the silent depths as his strength begins to fade. Suddenly, he and his companion burst from the surface, gasping for air as the sun breaks through the clouds. They collapse on the shore, completely exhausted but alive, the waves washing over their bodies. The disciple yells at Jusun for his recklessness, asking what he was thinking going for a swim in such awful weather. Jusun simply laughs, clutching the knotted rope that now symbolizes a truth he can finally accept. The young physician looks on, completely bewildered by his friend's strange and sudden change in mood. Holding the rope tightly, Jusun then asks the physician to help him just one more time. The disciple complains that he already saved his life and asks what more he could possibly want. With a determined grin, Jusun announces their new mission is to rescue the girl Sosian from the river pirates. The young physician is left speechless, completely shocked by the absurdly dangerous request. Despite his hesitation, his hand instinctively tightens around the hilt of his sword. In the distance, a large fortress stands on a cliff by the river, the infamous hideout of their new enemies. Outside the pirate fortress, dozens of men work tirelessly, building a large dam to hold back the rising water. Hiding behind a rock, the disciple complains about the difficult task, while Jusun asks if he has a plan. Jusun casually admits he has no plan, which shocks his companion, who worries he intends to fight everyone. The young warrior clarifies they will just find Sosian and escape, so they must sneak into the buildings to search for her. The disciple points out that Jusun's clean clothes are a problem, but his suggestions to fix it are met with skepticism. He gives his friend a stern look, completely unimpressed by the ridiculous idea of him taking everything off. Meanwhile, two pirates on patrol complain about the awful weather, agreeing that this is better than building dams. The disciple and Jusun realize they are in trouble as their eyes widen in shared panic. They spot the two guards walking below and know that fighting them now would be the worst possible choice. The physician's heart pounds in his chest, the tension of the situation becoming almost unbearable. He grips his sword, deciding their best option is to wait for the guards to pass by quietly. But he realizes they will be spotted, suggesting they hide under the bridge, but there isn't enough room for both. After a moment of frantic gesturing, the disciple suggests they hide on opposite sides of the rock. He agrees with the plan, thinking the rain will cover their noise, and compliments Jusun on his quick thinking. The two pirates cross the wooden bridge, their heavy footsteps echoing as they get closer to the hiding spot. From behind the rock, the physician watches them pass, while Jusun peeks from the other side. Relieved, the young man gives a thumbs up, thinking their infiltration is going to be easy. But in a flash, Jusun's expression hardens as he prepares to make a sudden and unexpected move. A wave of purple energy erupts, striking down the two unsuspecting pirates in an instant. Jusun unleashes a powerful attack, taking out both guards with a single devastating blow. With a fierce shout, Jusun's eyes gleam with a mix of rage and determination as he launches his attack. He swiftly engages the two guards, while the disciple leaps back in shock, completely caught off guard by the sudden violence. Panting heavily, Jusun looks down, confused by his own exhaustion after the brief but intense fight. Suddenly, he senses two powerful figures behind him, realizing they must be the infamous twin hounds of Bangta. He rolls his eyes in utter exhaustion, annoyed that he has to deal with even more trouble so soon. The young physician glares at him, his face a mask of panic and frustration as he curses his companion's recklessness. One of the guard dogs yells angrily, demanding to know who dares block his path. Meanwhile, our protagonist seems completely exhausted and without energy. The young doctor takes a few steps back, completely surprised by the sudden attack. Then he yells at his friend to wake up and call him an idiot. At that moment, the other opponent realized that there was another guy hiding there. With that, the two enemies jump towards the boys to attack. One of the pirates raises his sword high in the air, shouting that he will end this. Jun's companion is terrified, feeling like he's running off a cliff, but his look quickly changes and he fills with determination to fight. He remembers his master smiling, so he knows he can't back down now. The enemy swings his blade with full force towards the young man. In the reflection of his eye, the doctor can see the attack approaching. However, the boy manages to defend the attack, and the two swords clash. Sparks fly everywhere as the young man stands his ground against the pirate. With great courage, he decides that he will aim directly at his opponent's chest, and in a quick movement he lands a direct blow on his opponent. The second enemy becomes enraged and prepares to finish off the doctor. Looking to the side, the boy remains focused on the pirate's next move. He narrowly manages to dodge the attack as it brushes past him. The doctor then looks back, startled at how close the blade passed. The young swordsman stands there, looking at his opponent lying on the ground. He apologizes, saying that he is not used to fighting with real swords. Suddenly, a hand touches his shoulder, and the boy looks confused without understanding anything. The guy from the Nangang family stands up, saying that this is normal in his family. In a flashback, we see the two training with wooden swords while talking. The boy praises the incredible blade of the doctor, who tried to save the other's face. Back in the present, the nobleman asks for a little more time holding his weapon. He shows off his fancy sword that has a beautifully detailed golden bird on it. Jun's companion is shocked, asking if they are going to fight for real. The nobleman promises not to use his internal energy or dangerous techniques. He thinks he can't let all his effort go down the drain because of the girl. So the guy shows off, saying he's going to show the power of the fifth best sword. With an intense look, the swordsman begs the doctor to accept the duel. The young man is embarrassed and accepts because of the pressure of the moment. Reluctantly, he steps forward once more to attack his opponent. He thinks that if he uses the same move as before, his opponent will defend easily. The nobleman smiles because he knows that the result this time will be different. The doctor jumps to the attack, but using a slightly different technique. Your opponent decides he will respond in the same way he was attacked. The two blades meet in a metallic clash with sparks flying. Shocked, the nobleman sees his legendary sword being cut by an ordinary blade. He can't believe his family's gun is being damaged. Meanwhile, the doctor maintains his posture with a focused and determined look. The opponent then remembers that he promised not to use his internal energy in the fight. With the force of the impact, the young swordsman is thrown back and off balance. Looking at the girl, the nobleman says, "He will slice the sword in the name of Namgung." Jun's companion holds tightly to the handle of his simple metal weapon. The girl, who was watching from afar, has a surprised expression on her face. In a memory, the doctor asks if the nobleman will fight with a wooden sword. He asks if the boy is sure he is fighting a real blade. The nobleman smiles and thanks him for the opportunity to fight with a master from a family of doctors. The young man, without grace, agrees to learn a thing or two from his opponent. The doctor thinks he's gotten into something strange because the Namgung family was a legend. He then realizes that the boy is just trying to show off to the girl, and that the nobleman's eyes are the same as the guys who started a fight in his clinic. So he decides to attack lightly and miss on purpose to get it over with. With a concentrated expression, the young man advances to deliver his blow. The nobleman defends himself easily with a smug smile on his face. He thinks that fighting a weak opponent makes him unmotivated to fight, but decides it's best to teach the doctor a lesson so he can defend himself in the future. The nobleman thinks that the ideal would be to use one of his techniques to deflect the blade, so he plans to pretend that he will go along with the doctor's scam to trick him. The two swords slide against each other with a loud metallic sound. After changing the direction of the blow, the noble prepares to use his technique. But to his surprise, the tip of his legendary sword breaks on impact. The young doctor's blade passes straight through and cuts the rest of the weapon in two. The boy from the Namgung family is terrified, wondering what will happen next. Then the doctor runs through the opponent's blade, who is unable to stop the blow. With the tip of the sword near his neck, the nobleman loses a piece of his clothing. Jun's companion widens his eyes in total panic, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, everything turns red, and the boy holds his gun, calling for his master. A voice tells him to wipe the blood away as a drop runs down his face. Then the scene returns to normal, with Jun cleaning a cut and thanking his friend. The two observe the pirates heading out, and the doctor plans to search the houses. With a determined look, Jun clenches his fists, ready for the mission. At this point, his friend insults him, calling him an idiot for his previous recklessness. But the protagonist retorts, saying that he is the real idiot for not hiding. The doctor defends himself by saying that Jun didn't understand his hand signal. He then asks his friend to focus on finding the girl as quickly as possible, and also to stop shouting the names of the scams while Jun spies a house. Jun doesn't understand the problem of shouting the blows. Since he was taught that way, the doctor says they only passed because he is a master and points to the last house. The protagonist makes fun of his friend, who was beaten by his technique for a whole month, so he bets that there is no one there. But the doctor reminds him that he is poor. With an offended face, our hero approaches the door to open it. They enter and don't see anyone, but notice the feet of two guys just below. Inside the place, two huge pirates thank the duo for their patrol service. At that moment, the two friends turn pale, realizing that they have gotten into trouble. Then the cabin door closes with a loud noise. The wood of the door creaks and cracks as if something is breaking. Soon after, the two heroes peek through the crack in the door, very scared. Suddenly, they manage to drag the two pirates out of the house. Now the two brutes are on the ground, tied up, and appear to have been beaten. The doctor points his sword at one of them, while Jun holds a staff. They then ask the captured where the girl who was kidnapped is. With a serious look, the doctor tells them to speak before they get a hole in their bodies. The two heroes continue interrogating the pirates under heavy rain, but one of the bandits laughs at him, saying that the young man never really threatened anyone. He continues to mock, saying that the doctor needs to be scarier than the torturer. The boy gets nervous because he thought they would tell him everything, and now he doesn't know what to do. The doctor looks at the pirate with a serious expression and calls his attention. Jun asks if there is no other way, since the guy is only afraid of the torturer. With a look of panic, the doctor is shocked by the word torture. Then he walks away, leaving his friend confused as he guards the prisoners. Our protagonist asks his companion what he is up to. The doctor then opens a small wooden box with several small white cubes inside. He explains that he brought an emergency medicine that could also be a poison. The boy says he doesn't want to and doesn't know how to torture anyone, and gets a little rain he will use just enough to look like poison and scare the pirate. Then the young man approaches the prisoners, hoping that his plan will work. Jun pins one of the guys to the ground, while the brute asks what's going on. The doctor approaches with a needle and a dark aura, and the pirate is startled. With an evil smile, he says he will test his own torture on the bandit. He lies, saying that everyone who was hit by that needle died. The boy continues that the pain will be much worse than being stabbed with a sword. And to scare things even more, he says that the patrol guard also died like that. The pirate doubts it, saying that a swordsman wouldn't know anything about poisons. The doctor challenges him to find out if it is a lie, while he thinks he did not measure the dose. Then he sticks the needle in the pirate's neck, whose eyes wide open. The bandit says nothing is happening, but suddenly starts to have a reaction. The other pirate panics when he sees his leader getting sick in front of him. Then the brute falls to the ground completely unconscious. The doctor is terrified when he realizes what has just happened to the man. Up close we see the bandit's eye rolled back with several veins popping out. His expression is one of pure agony as the poison takes effect in his body. The doctor looks at the needle in his hand, completely confused and scared. He then realizes that the pirate couldn't resist and ended up passing away. The second bandit trembles with fear when he sees his companion on the ground. At this point, the doctor grabs the other hostage by the neck with great anger. The pirate's eyes widen in pure terror, not knowing what to do. With a frightening look, the young man asks once again where the girl is. The bandit, frightened, reveals that she is hiding in a nearby cave. The doctor reflects that he took lives, one with a sword and another with medicine. The entrance to the dark cave appears amidst the heavy rain that was falling. Then the two friends enter the place, lighting the way with torches. The fire from the torches illuminates the rocky walls of the dark cave. The doctor's hand holds the torch tightly as they advance through the tunnel. He thinks he had to do this to save his friends Juzon and Sozin. One death was on purpose, while the other was a complete accident. Jun looks at his friend, worried about the state of shock he is in. The protagonist then asks if the bandit's death was a mistake, and his friend remains silent. He says the pirate deserved it because he was a bad guy who bragged about his crimes. The doctor admits it was an accident, but says he doesn't regret it one bit. He then tells them to find the girl and leave quickly, complaining about the rain. Our hero agrees to the plan, but still has a worried expression on his face. He wonders if it was in vain to have asked his companion for help with this mission. He knows he can't go back because he's the one who got his friend into all this. With a determined expression, the boy moves forward without hesitating for a second. Ahead, they find a fork in the cave with two paths to follow. The young doctor notices a strong smell on one side, and Jun suggests they separate. Our hero then says he will check one side while the other waits on guard. Suddenly, the doctor notices something and tells Jun to wait because someone is coming. The protagonist quickly bends down and puts his ear to the ground to listen. With great concentration, he tries to identify the sounds that approach them. The friend then asks what kind of people are coming towards them. With a panicked look on his face, the boy says that all the pirates are coming together. A little further ahead, a huge group of bandits appears at the end of the tunnel with torches. The entire cave trembles with the footsteps of so many men approaching. With a determined look, the young man says they will make many traveling companions. Without thinking twice, he advances with everything towards the enemies. The doctor advances, cutting down several pirates at once with his sword. With a focused gaze, he defends himself from a blow while blood flies. He thinks he needs to avoid his initial plan because it has many flaws. The entire cave begins to shake with the intensity of the battle. The young swordsman continues his rapid advance against the enemies. His plan is to hurt his opponents only to stop them one by one. But he realizes that if he does this, things could go very wrong. He knows he will continue to be pushed back by the crowd. In his mind, he sees himself being caught from behind by several fatal blows. Suddenly, a huge man appears, saying that many tried to rob him. He licks a cut on his finger and complains that no one has challenged him lately. The two friends are on high alert in the face of the new and powerful enemy. The pirate boss starts laughing in a very loud and scary way. Our heroes are terrified by the laughter that echoes through the cave. The doctor realizes that laughter has internal energy, and the guy is a master. The big guy tells them to stop talking and insults the protagonist. Jun gets furious and says the only cure for him is a beating. Then he attacks the boss with his staff, using all his strength, but the villain holds the attack with his hands and mocks the boy's strength. The doctor panics and shouts his friend Juzen's name. The boss throws the boy away, and the doctor runs to help him in the fight. The villain says it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, he will do what he wants. A huge flash occurs as the weapons of the three clash forcefully. Jun's staff clashes with his opponent's axe, creating sparks. The two friends attack the pirate chief at the same time with everything they have. The big guy smiles evilly as he defends himself from the blows. Then he kicks the protagonist and throws him back with a sure blow. The young doctor uses his friend as a support to propel himself forward, but the villain throws them to the ground with a single quick and strong movement. The pirate chief looks at them with a confident and scary smile. The two friends get up with difficulty, ready for the next attack. The doctor realizes that the enemy's energy is strong and his stomach turns. He remembers his master teaching him how to finish the fight quickly. The young man is surprised when the villain says he is having a lot of fun. The pirate asks who will come first, and the doctor realizes it won't be an easy fight. He is indecisive, not knowing whether to attack from the left or right. With a terrified look, the boy sees the enemy approaching quickly. The villain promises to take it easy and tells the doctor to try to last a long time. He narrowly dodges a powerful attack that grazes him. The young man feels that the pressure of the wind has almost torn him apart, and that the enemy is very fast. But he thinks that compared to his master, he can see the enemy's blows clearly. With that, the two friends fight together against the pirate boss in the cave. Our hero shouts his technique, and the doctor is surprised by his lack of fear. The protagonist and the villain exchange powerful blows with their heavy weapons. The young swordsman jumps to help his friend, who is being pressed. However, he realizes that he is unable to see his opponent's attack patterns. With anger, he understands that the pirate chief is just playing with them. The boy feels like a mouse in front of a cat ready to pounce. But he remembers that he is a mouse raised by a tiger, and he will not give up the fight. With determination, he says he will find a solution or improvise a plan. The villain throws them both to the ground and prepares to attack the swordsman first. But the young man manages to defend himself from the pirate's blows with his sharp blade. He analyzes that the enemy only uses very simple vertical and horizontal blows, and there is a slight delay for him to switch from one type of blow to another. His plan then is to lure the villain's hands upwards and attack his exposed body. Meanwhile, our hero continues shouting the names of his fighting techniques. The friend gets angry because he thinks he can't even land a single blow. At this point, the boss comments that the guy is blocking all of his attack patterns. Suddenly, the doctor attacks his own companion with several quick blows. He continues the attack while the protagonist flies backwards without understanding anything. The two friends exchange tense glances in the midst of the intense battle. The doctor knows that at this rate neither of them will last much longer. The pirate chief advances on them with an evil grin on his face. The young swordsman decides he needs to create an opening by any means necessary. With a quick movement, he dodges an axe blow that passes close by. He then goes after the villain with his sword in hand, and a lot of courage. The big guy realizes the boy's intention and asks if he should give him a break. The doctor is shocked, wondering if the enemy has managed to read his mind. A huge explosion of energy occurs when their weapons collide. The young swordsman is thrown back by the force of the blow's impact. He shouts the name of one of his techniques as the ground cracks around him. The protagonist takes advantage of the distraction and attacks the villain with his bat. The boy is terrified when he sees the scene unfolding in front of him. He then notices that his friend is smiling in the middle of the fight. With a look of panic, the young man wonders why his friend is smiling. The three continue the battle with our hero advancing with his staff. He realizes that the villain's attack is a feat to catch him off guard. The boy then throws his stick in the air to deceive the enemy with a trick. He prepares to attack the pirate chief while he is distracted. The villain is surprised and the doctor smiles as he shouts the name of the technique. But the pirate chief manages to land a kick right in our hero's chest. The boy feels immense pain from the impact of the powerful blow on his body. Sweat runs down his face as he endures the pain of the severe attack. Then the villain lands a punch that throws the protagonist away. The doctor then takes advantage of the gap and flies to attack the enemy from behind. The boss laughs, finding the three-legged beggar's trick very amusing. The young doctor is determined not to waste the opportunity his friend has created. He then stomps his feet on the ground, preparing for the final attack with everything. With the sword in his hands, he shouts that he will go all out against the bandit. Then he quickly advances while the villain is still busy with June. Looking at his friend, the doctor says he is counting on his help. With a sure blow, the boy's blade passes straight through the chief's neck. The big guy keeps smiling as the attack hits him hard. In this case, the doctor's blow is so strong that the villain ends up losing his head. The protagonist looks up as the enemy's blood splashes on him. Something then rolls across the floor, stopping right in front of the other pirates. The villain's expression freezes in a creepy, lifeless smile. One of the bandits is terrified and suggests that they run away from there right now. The two heroes prepare to face the rest of the pirate gang. One of the pirates tries to cheer up the crowd by shouting that they can't let the heroes take their money. He says the boys must be at their limit, and the doctor thinks the guy is very smart. The young swordsman fills himself with courage, thinking that he must endure until the end. In one memory, we see someone taking a bunch of fine needles from a little box. Then the two friends prepare for the fight, holding the needles in their hands, with his fingers full of needles. The protagonist begins to shout the name of a technique. He positions himself as if he were throwing the needles with incredible power. The friend gets angry and asks if he thinks he can win with a made-up technique. Needles fly through the air, but the doctor thinks the attack doesn't look like much. He keeps complaining that it doesn't even look like a shower of flowers. Our hero then makes fun of his companion, asking why he is so proud. The young swordsman is shocked and doesn't understand what is happening. Suddenly, several pirates fall to the ground, defeated, leaving the others scared. June asks with a smile if his friend is saying it was all luck. The doctor looks at the bodies in horror and wants to know who did it. The pirates on the ground are foaming at the mouth, and one of them is swearing incoherently. The guy with the eye patch realizes that the men have been hit by poison. With an evil smile, the young doctor confirms that it is poison and it is very lethal. He threatens the bandits, saying that if they attack, he will wipe out half of them. Then he asks if the pirates want to stop the fight right there. The doctor asks the pirates if wealth is everything to them, and that they don't care about the death of their chief. He then says that they are different, because they are there for the child who was kidnapped. The eye patch bandit asks if they are referring to the beggar children. Our hero is surprised, and the two friends look at each other with a serious expression. The pirate can't believe they did all that just because of the beggars. With a suspicious look, he still thinks the boys are lying. He screams that he can't believe the story of the two young heroes. With a smile, the doctor tells him not to believe it, but that it will cost him his life. Then he tells the pirates to leave if they understood his message. The two friends turn their backs and continue their way through the dark cave. The bandits stand still and watch the pair slowly walk away. The men seem indecisive, unsure whether to attack or retreat. With expressions of fear and doubt, they continue to look at the two heroes. Suddenly, everyone starts running desperately to escape the cave. Boys hide behind a rock to watch the pirates escape. They hear familiar voices calling for their parents, and the vice leader. Behind bars, a child calls out for his father, and the deputy leader of the beggars. In a memory, the girl screams for her father with great longing and sadness. The father hugs his daughter affectionately as tears stream down his face. Other children also reunite with their parents in a very emotional moment. After the battle, the two friends watch their families reunite with great joy. Our hero waves to his companion with a big smile on his face. The doctor then looks at his friend's hand with a somewhat shocked expression. He is relieved that his friend is okay, even after holding a poisonous blade. The young swordsman thinks his master has helped him once again in this whole mess. With a smile on his face, he asks his friend what his plans are for the future. The protagonist says he has no plans, and that he thought about following along with his partner. He thinks he can't stay in the city and wonders if he'll put the old man in danger. The doctor makes fun of it, saying that this is how a homeless man asks for help after almost dying. The young man then asks who will pay for the food and drink, and the hero replies that it will be him. The doctor comments that this is worse than begging for help, and his friend is embarrassed. Suddenly, the two found themselves with an expression of utter surprise on their faces. Elsewhere, their master drinks tea and thinks that the sword he ordered was useful. The two arrive, and the old man asks what they did with the 100 silver coins he gave them. The master then confesses that he was worried and ended up spending everything on bets. He then changes the subject and asks if they know about the fight between the factions in the past. Meanwhile, in the city, news of the pirate boss's death begins to spread. The people say that two young men defeated him and that they must be from a large sect in a nearby port. Other residents also talk about what happened without knowing the details. A man says he was tired of pirates and that now they won't be around anymore. The man says things will be quiet and compares the situation to flies. Then at the port, a guy shouts that they are leaving for Nakyang City. With that, the great ship begins to sail, cutting through the waves of the blue sea. On deck, the two friends seem very excited about the new journey ahead. The doctor holds a bag of money. As the sun sets on the horizon, he pays the blacksmiths and merchants who suffered from the pirates. The boy reflects that strength is needed in the most unexpected moments. That's why he trains hard with his sword under the light of the full moon. From afar, your friend watches the intense fencing training on the deck. The protagonist is impressed and wonders when his friend improved so much. At night on the ship, the doctor continues training alone with great dedication. With a focused gaze, he strives to become stronger and stronger. Suddenly, the young man hears clapping and turns around surprised by the noise. The clapping continues as someone approaches him in the dark. A man appears and apologizes for seeing his training. The doctor is confused and only then realizes that it has already gotten dark. The stranger introduces himself as Namgung Myeong and invites him to fight. He is the eldest son of the famous Namgung family, a martial artist. The nobleman feels frustrated because he fears his father's disappointment. He seems to see the doctor as a challenge that can prove his worth. The nobleman remembers a woman who didn't care about his famous name. On the table, a bowl with a drink has a flower petal floating in it. He showed off to the girl by jumping out of a cherry tree with his sword in his hand. Then the boy hands a branch of flowers to the young woman with a smile on his face. She hides her face with a fan as she looks at the beautiful pink flowers. Suddenly, the doctor appears behind her, shouting excitedly from the flowering branch. With shining eyes, he asks for the branch to use as medicine for someone who is sick. The girl delivers the flowers and the nobleman is shocked by the situation in the background. The swordsman becomes furious and several veins pop out all over his face. Back in the present, the guy from the Namgang family asks to fight with the doctor. The doctor is surprised because he understands that it is a challenge for the Namgang family. With a fierce look, the nobleman from the Namgang family declares he will break his opponent. He firmly grips the hilt of his ornate steel sword, ready to uphold his family's honor. The young doctor, in contrast, holds a simple wooden sword as he prepares for the duel. He asks if his opponent will be all right using a real blade, but the warrior says it is fine. The nobleman is grateful for the chance to fight a child from a family of doctors. He thanks the young man for becoming the flower that will decorate his martial arts debut. The doctor nervously agrees, feeling like he has gotten into a very troublesome situation. Before this, the Namgang family was just a martial arts legend to him back in Sichuan. He realizes the warrior is just trying to impress a woman and notes the look in his eyes. The nobleman has the same eyes as the difficult patients who used to visit his clinic. Deciding to just lose gracefully, the doctor plans to attack with only half his strength. He charges forward with a loud shout, swinging his wooden sword over his head. With a determined expression, he brings the blade down in a straightforward arc. The warrior calmly watches, thinking it is the honest but slow sword of a second-rate fighter. He predicts the attack is a simple feat, and his resolve to crush the novice weakens. But he quickly changes his mind, deciding this is the perfect opponent to teach a lesson to. He plans to show him enough, so he can maybe handle a few mountain bandits in the future. His strategy is to deflect the attack softly before unfolding his own special technique. He moves to match the trajectory of the wooden sword, preparing to change his path and strike. As he attacks the wooden sword, we see it suddenly shatter. The nobleman is shocked as he realizes his own blade is now heading straight for his shoulder. Sweat drips down his face as the sword's edge gets dangerously close to his skin. He understands that his own technique accidentally increased the speed of his opponent's swing. The warrior's blade narrowly misses him, slicing a piece of his sleeve before striking the deck. The young doctor looks back with a worried expression, realizing what almost happened. After a quick backflip to dodge, the nobleman lands awkwardly while his opponent stands frozen. The young man immediately kneels and apologizes for handling the real sword too carelessly. His opponent extends a hand toward him, leaving the doctor confused by the gesture. Balancing on his hands, the warrior laughs it off, saying it happens all the time in his family. He thanks his opponent for the lesson, while the doctor apologizes for the worn-out weapon. The two exchange pleasantries, but the doctor feels his opponent is not taking the easy way out. The nobleman suddenly gets serious and asks to continue the spar for a little longer. He then proposes a real sword fight, which leaves the young doctor completely stunned. The warrior promises not to use his internal energy, determined not to let his hard work be wasted. He feels his pure heart is on the line, while the girl in the background hides her face with a fan. The nobleman says he will show the true power of his family with the legendary Sambong's sword. With an intense gaze, he begs the doctor to accept his challenge one more time. Overwhelmed by his spirit, the young man agrees. Wondering how serious he is about the woman, he nervously announces his next attack and charges forward under the full moon. The doctor prepares to block, assuming the attack will follow the same simple path as before. The nobleman thinks that while the sword path is the same, this time the result will be different. He decides not to use a soft technique, instead choosing to meet the attack with equal force. As their blades are about to connect, he resolves to respond to the strike in kind. But as the steel meets, the doctor's blade begins to slice into the nobleman's sword. The warrior looks on in disbelief, unable to understand how his legendary Sambong sword is breaking. He takes a step back in shock as he realizes his treasured family weapon is being cut. The doctor's eyes widen with surprise before he pushes forward with his attack. Suddenly, a powerful blue aura surrounds the young man as he channels his energy. The nobleman panics, realizing he just broke his promise not to use his internal energy. The force of the energy infused strike sends the warrior flying backward across the deck. The young doctor rushes over, yelling at him for clearly breaking his promise. His opponent apologizes awkwardly, explaining that real combat is just a habit in his family. Annoyed, the doctor points out that a promise is a promise, no matter what his family does. He suggests they end the spar there, and the nobleman quietly agrees, feeling utterly humiliated. The warrior thinks about how he has made a fool of himself 3 times in a row. The doctor walks away, annoyed that the nobleman ruined a perfectly good wooden sword, but his opponent is struck with a new wave of panic. Realizing that is not the real problem, he worries that if he returns like this, his father and the elders will have words with him. A terrifying image of his father fills his mind as he becomes certain he will be killed. The young doctor looks back over his shoulder, confused by the warrior's sudden strange behavior. The nobleman panics, repeatedly thinking he was wrong and begging to be spared. He tries to rationalize his loss, wondering if the doctor's weapon is a divine sword. The doctor sheathes his sword, the source of the warrior's fear, and prepares to leave. He then tries to calm the trembling nobleman, telling him he does not need to beg for his life. The young man says they can just treat the strange spar as an accident since the terms were fair. The warrior thanks him as they stand on the ship's deck, sailing under the full moon. He then looks at the doctor's sheathed weapon and asks if he would be willing to sell his sword. The doctor smiles but politely declines, explaining that the blade is special to him. Accepting the refusal, the nobleman thanks him for his time and wishes him a good night. Watching him and the girl walk away, the doctor thinks he was a very dangerous and selfish man. With a week left until they disembark, he decides to avoid the warrior if possible. 1 week later, a flag bearing the characters for Wuhan flutters against a bright blue sky. Suddenly, as the ship approaches the port, the doctor screams in panic about his missing sword. His companion and the old master rush over to him, asking what is wrong. In his messy cabin, the doctor realizes who took his weapon, looking up at his companions in fury. His face contorts with rage as he understands that the nobleman has tricked him. Meanwhile, the warrior from the Namging family rides away on horseback at full speed. He holds the stolen weapon high, shouting that he has finally obtained the divine sword. With a triumphant grin, he declares that his debut in the martial arts world is a success. In the distance, a massive, sprawling city is nestled in a valley, his likely destination. The nobleman finally arrives at the grand gates of the Namging family estate after his long ride. He guides his tired horse through the city streets and into the family's private stables. A stable hand tends to the horse, noting how fast it must have run to be eating so greedily. The man also notices dirt all over the animal, concluding that the young master must be quite dirty as well. Standing covered in filth, the warrior looks up at the main building, while the stable hand wishes him well. He stands alone in the vast courtyard, gazing up at an impressive dragon statue above the entrance. The young master brushes some of the dust from his robes as he prepares to face his family. Taking a deep breath, he composes himself, his hands trembling slightly with nervous energy. He then enters the main hall and loudly calls out for his father with his arms outstretched. 3 stern figures, his father and 2 elders, look down at him from a raised platform. The young man immediately kneels, placing the cloth-wrapped sword on the floor before them. With a proud grin, he announces that he has something urgent he must present to his father. The clan leader looks down unimpressed, remarking that it must be a great success to interrupt their meeting. The youth lifts the sword, presenting it to his father as a great trophy from his journey. The patriarch reaches down, his hand hovering over the weapon his son has brought him. That night, the Namgang estate holds a feast with floating lanterns to celebrate the young master's return. The doctor and his companions arrive, hearing that the warrior is the son of a famous martial arts master. His friend explains the feast is to celebrate the success of the young master's first big venture. The old man then tells the doctor that the nobleman stole his sword, leaving the youth in shock. He stares down at the party, angered by how they can proudly celebrate a victory based on theft. The old master scoffs, telling the doctor the nobleman would never admit to stealing the sword. He assumes the warrior told his father he obtained the weapon through a great stroke of luck. The master thinks the feast is the perfect time to catch the thief. His companion asks if he has a plan. He dismisses the need for a simple plan against the powerful and revered head of the Namgun clan. The girl suggests it might be better to retrieve the sword after the feast to avoid making enemies. The old man tells her she is too innocent and that they need to act like mad dogs in this situation. He explains that prestigious clans only care about their own reputation and think differently than others. The only way to deal with them, he insists, is to embarrass them in front of a large crowd. Suddenly, an old man in the crowd calls out to him, and the master turns to see a familiar face. The man, Namgung Jinya, greets him warmly, surprised to see his old acquaintance at the feast. The master greets him back with a joke about his missing left arm, which seems to annoy Jinya. Jinya then asks about the young man with him, and the master introduces him as a physician. He adds that the doctor has business with the Namgung family, which makes the old man curious. At that moment, wooden clappers sound, signaling the start of the main ceremony. An announcer calls for the entrance of the clan head, Namgung Jinxian, and his son, Mayong. The crowd cheers as the two walk onto a stage, the young nobleman holding an ornate wooden box. The box is opened, revealing the doctor's stolen sword resting inside on a silk lining. The clan head stands before the crowd of guests, ready to address them and start the celebration. He thanks everyone for coming and praises his son for obtaining a divine sword through a stroke of luck. The young nobleman stands beside him with a proud, enjoying the attention. The clan head asks the crowd to celebrate this great fortune together with the family. He raises his cup and asks them to assist in ensuring the future glory of the Namgung clan. The guests cheer loudly, congratulating the family and raising their cups in a toast. The young nobleman smiles smugly beside his father, enjoying the praise and admiration. He spots the doctor and his companions in the crowd, a smirk still on his face. Namgung Jinya turns to the master and the doctor, his face suddenly filled with concern. He looks up at the stage and asks how his nephew could have told such a massive lie. The old man worries that if the clan head finds out, he will destroy his son's Klai core for sure. The girl is shocked to hear this, and the old man adds that he would even imprison him for life. The master calmly explains that such is the nature of the Namgun clan's strict code of honor. He says that sullying the family name is a crime, so great that the head would treat his own son as a criminal. The young nobleman on stage seems completely unaware of the turmoil his actions have caused. The girl looks on with disgust, thinking that he is a jerk, but knows she has to get her sword back. She decides she needs to retrieve her weapon, no matter the consequences for the young warrior. The doctor looks lost in thought, his expression grim as he considers his next move. Just as he is about to step forward, Namgung Jinya grabs his arm, stopping him. The old man offers to compensate the doctor for the theft, asking him to overlook the mistake. But the master steps in, telling Jinya not to be ridiculous with such a request. He says a request from someone of his stature is a threat, not a negotiation. The master angrily asks how they can expect a martial artist to simply overlook having his sword stolen. Jinya laughs nervously, trying to de-escalate the tense situation between the two groups. He continues to plead with the doctor, asking him to reconsider his actions for the sake of the family. The old man explains that his nephew only stole the sword to gain his father's approval. The master listens to Jinya's pleas but remains unmoved, his back turned to the old man. He then asks Jinya if he does not know about karma, stating that his nephew must face his own sins. The master understands the old man's worry, but tells him he is the one who needs to reconsider. He questions if Jinya will really allow a child who hides behind his family name to become the next clan head. The master's words leave Jinya speechless, unable to argue against the harsh truth. With a final warning, the master tells the old man not to interfere if that is not the case. He then turns and walks away, leaving Jinya and the doctor behind as his companion eats a snack. A powerful aura erupts from the master, a wave of spiritual energy that washes over the crowd. The doctor and Jinya are both taken aback by the sudden and immense display of power. The master takes a single, powerful step, the ground cracking under the force of his movement. The guests are thrown off balance by the shock wave, wondering who could unleash such a powerful step. He moves through the crowd like a phantom, heading directly for the stage where the clan head stands. The clan leader looks up from his cup, his eyes widening slightly as he senses the approaching presence. The master appears before him and greets him by name, his apology for the intrusion dripping with sarcasm. He then declares that he is there to retrieve the sword, causing the young nobleman to panic. Pointing at the stage, the master announces the sword's true name is the soul-severing sword. He then points to the doctor, declaring to the entire crowd that the blade belongs to him. The doctor stares in disbelief, thinking the master is crazy for causing such a scene. The clan head addresses the master by his title, noting he is known for making strange claims. He says he knows the eccentric physician is not one to make baseless claims and asks what is going on. The clan head's gaze falls upon his trembling son, demanding that he speak and explain the situation. The master smiles, seeing that his plan to expose the young nobleman is working perfectly. He steps forward and addresses the clan head, sarcastically recounting the story of the sword's acquisition. The master then shoves the doctor forward, putting him on the spot to explain himself. The young man stammers, trying to find the right words as he faces the powerful clan leader. He begins to explain that a prized family treasure, the soul-severing sword, was stolen from him recently. He continues his story, saying that he came to the feast after hearing the young nobleman had obtained it. The guests begin to murmur, recognizing the doctor's name, Tang, as the story unfolds. The doctor admits it was his fault for not taking proper care of the sword, taking responsibility. He then bows deeply, pleading with the clan head to help him protect his family's treasure. The young nobleman watches in confusion, wondering why the doctor is covering for his lies. He knows he needs to gauge his father's reaction to this unexpected turn of events. The clan head remains silent, his expression unreadable as he listens to the doctor's tale. The master and the doctor stand before the stage, waiting for the clan leader's judgment. The clan head picks up the sword, its blade gleaming in the light of the festival lanterns. He then throws the sword down into the courtyard, embedding it in the stone floor between the two men. The crowd looks down from the stage in surprise. The master smiles, amused that the clan head himself is joining in on the festivities. The clan head asks the doctor if he can prove that the sword is truly his family heirloom. With a stern look, he warns the young man that he must take responsibility if he cannot prove his claim. The doctor feels the weight of the clan leader's piercing gaze. Realizing the danger he is in, he stares at the sword, thinking he is dead for sure if he fails to provide any proof of ownership. The young man panics, unsure of what to do, as he looks to his master for guidance. He realizes his master wants him to figure it out himself, which only adds to his stress. He struggles to think of a way to prove his claim, wondering if he can make another sword just like it. Suddenly, an idea strikes him, and his eyes widen as he realizes what he needs to do. The doctor calls out to the clan head, ready to present his solution to the difficult problem. He pulls the sword from the ground and announces that it holds a secret that will prove his ownership. He claims that if he uses a secret family art in a private place with a fire, he can make the sword give birth. The young man then adds that the sword is pregnant and should give birth in just 5 days. The entire crowd, including the clan head, is left speechless by this bizarre and unbelievable claim. A wave of laughter erupts from the guests, who find the doctor's story completely ridiculous. Even the doctor himself feels a little embarrassed, thinking he may have gone too overboard with the story. The clan head then calls out to the master, his voice echoing across the now silent courtyard. He asks the eccentric physician if he will stand as a guarantor for the doctor's incredible claim. The clan leader's eyes narrow as he asks if the master can truly stand by his companion's words. Without a moment's hesitation, the master confidently agrees. The master proudly declares that while he may play pranks, he never lies to anyone. The clan head considers this for a moment, his expression stern and unreadable. He then gives the doctor 5 days to prove his claim at an abandoned forge on the southern hill. If he fails, the clan leader warns, both the doctor and his master will have to give up their heads. Later at the forge, the master tells the doctor that he should not have done what he did. The young man is confused, asking what he did wrong besides the wild story about the sword baby. The master explains that the issue is not the unbelievable story, but how he chose to handle the situation. He reminds the doctor that he told him to be a mad dog, not to let himself be taken advantage of. To avoid looking like a fool, he says, the most important thing is to make sure others pay for their wrongs. The master looks at the roaring forge and tells the doctor he was a fool for the terms he set. The doctor laughs it off, saying he is just a generous man, and that revenge does not suit him, but his master tells him that was not a matter of generosity, his expression turning serious. He explains that while some things can be overlooked, an act of evil must not be repaid with kindness. The doctor tries to argue, saying that the nobleman and his uncle will surely be thankful for his mercy. The master warns him that if he continues to repay evil with kindness, he will attract hyenas. The young man thinks that he would rather face one enemy than make 10 new ones with acts of revenge. But his master tells him this shows he still does not understand the nature of the martial arts world. He explains that ill will in this world often ends in steel and blood, unlike in a small village. The master points at the young man's chest, telling him he must always keep his enemies in front of him. He warns the doctor not to create dangers behind his back over a cheap sense of kindness or pity. The master emphasizes that because the doctor is a physician, he must pay close attention to this lesson. He tells the young man to always pay back good or bad in kind, and not to be the one who regrets his actions. An image of a wolf, bloody but victorious, flashes in the doctor's mind as he thinks about the lesson. He finally agrees, and for the next 5 days, he works tirelessly at the forge under the full moon. 5 days later, a crowd gathers at the Namgung estate, eager to see the result of the doctor's claim. The doctor holds a new, ornate sword, its blade gleaming as he prepares to present it. Beside it rests another blade, seemingly identical to the first, confusing the onlookers. The clan head himself is stunned, unable to believe what he is seeing before him. A heavy piece of iron is brought out, and the clan head splits it in two with a single, powerful strike. The crowd gasps in amazement, recognizing the legendary three-peak sword has been split in two. The clan head and his son look on, as the two halves of the iron are presented. Two men then test the two swords, crossing the blades and confirming their incredible quality. The clan head inspects one of the swords, confirming that it is real and not a cheap replica. The young nobleman is in disbelief, thinking that the sword has truly given birth to a baby. The clan leader cannot tell which of the swords his son originally brought, as they are perfectly matched. The doctor stands confidently, watching as the clan members marvel at his creation. The clan head smiles, impressed by the doctor's skill and the perfect twin swords he has crafted. He confirms that they are indeed a pair of twin swords, much to the crowd's amazement. The doctor then points at the young nobleman, declaring that the real mother sword is right there. He then draws his original sword, revealing the truth of his trick to the stunned onlookers. The onlookers stare in disbelief, realizing there are now three identical, high-quality swords. The young doctor holds up his original weapon, confirming that there are now three real swords in total. The young nobleman accepts his defeat, admitting the doctor has proven ownership of the original blade. He resigns himself to his fate, saying that all deeds will eventually return to their rightful place. The doctor then addresses the young heir, thanking him for taking care of the soul, severing sword. With a confident smile, he hands one of the newly forged swords to the nobleman as a gift. Night falls over the Namgung family estate, where the full moon shines brightly in the sky. Inside a room, the doctor sighs with relief and says that he really thought he was going to die, and his master teases him about his trembling legs. The master warns him that things went well this time, but there's no guarantee it will always be that way, and therefore he shouldn't let his guard down. The young man smiles, embracing his sword, thinking it's all over, but his companion says it's not yet. With a sly smile, the master explains that favors are a two-way street, and that now it's their turn to receive a favor. The doctor looks up, confused by his colleague's statement, not understanding what he means by it. Suddenly, knocks on the door catch the attention of the two, who turn around in surprise at the entrance. Speaking of the devil, the clan leader Namgoon and his son Myong appear at the door of their room. The family patriarch stares at the two of them with a very serious expression on his face. Beside him, the young nobleman lowers his head, looking ashamed of the whole situation. Then the leader apologizes, saying that his foolish son did something wrong, and that he heard he ran away with one of the swords. The doctor feels awkward, and the man tells him not to hesitate, because the boy has already told him the whole truth. Holding the sword, the patriarch declares that now that the truth has come to light, he must pay the price. The young man is perplexed, wondering what he means by paying the price. Then the man asks his son what happened to the servant girl who stole a silver ring 2 years ago. The doctor remains silent, completely tense, while the leader's question echoes through the room. The family heir responds with a somber expression as he recalls the terrible event. He reveals that her wrists have been cut, and the master and the doctor stare in shock at the scene. Then the clan leader raises his sword over his own son, who awaits his punishment without moving. With a swift movement, the patriarch brings the blade down toward the young nobleman to punish him for his actions. In a flashback, we see the young nobleman Myong shouting as he trains intensely with his sword. He reflects that all the moments he can remember are with a sword in his hand, as that was his way of life. This was the path his father and family chose for him from the very beginning of his journey, a path to becoming a patriarch that was forged with rigorous training and very strict rules. Young Myung believed he could endure all the training, the rules, and even the punishments. However, what affected him most was the occasional coldness shown by his father. His father's back seemed to convey a silent, but very powerful message to the boy. With a look of terror, young Myong understood perfectly what his father was trying to tell him. The message was that he wasn't good enough and that he needed to become fit to lead the family. And that was the reason he stole the sword, to prove his worth no matter what it took. He thought it didn't matter if he was cowardly or dirty, as long as he could become stronger. He was praised for obtaining the sword, but those were just excuses he made up. The family heir looks up with a serious expression on his face, accepting his fate. Those were the excuses that kept him going, but now he wouldn't need them anymore. However, the patriarch's sword is blocked by the doctor's sword, which breaks upon strong impact. The doctor's blade breaks in half the moment he protects the young nobleman from the blow. The clan leader looks at the doctor on the ground and asks in surprise why he stopped him. Since he then says that a mistake made by one hand must be paid for by that same hand, the doctor agrees that the young heir made a mistake and seems very nervous about the situation. The patriarch says he heard the truth, but also learned that he must pay for his mistakes in the same way. The doctor argues that he did nothing to atone for his own mistakes and says that what's important is that the young man pays for his. At that moment, the young nobleman Myong observes the scene in silence, appearing visibly nervous about the entire discussion. Then, the doctor intervenes, suggesting that they not turn the situation into an even bigger problem for everyone. The patriarch holds the sword with a new understanding of the facts and perceives the truth behind the words. He agrees with the young man, saying that he is right and that his actions ended up saving his son's wrist. The clan leader reflects that the doctor has done them 3 favors and wonders how he can repay them. The next day, sunlight illuminates the wooden roof of the Namgung family's property. As they walk along a stone walkway, the patriarch accompanies the doctor and his master. The family heir bows deeply, promising that one day he will repay the kindness he received. The clan leader asks if the doctor really forged the sword in just 5 days, leaving the young man surprised. He explains that he deduced this from the redness on his hands and the rust on his nails, and the boy confirms it. The man then remarks that the world is vast, and thanks the doctor for helping his son Myong. The doctor smiles awkwardly, scratching his head, and humbly says that he doesn't consider himself talented. He remembers the promise of retribution, but soon realizes that his master has already taken everything they could. Then the master reveals that he requested access to the celestial arsenal of remedies, and even a duel with the patriarch. The group continues walking while the oldest companion thinks it would be good if he kept his promise. Suddenly, the clan leader warns that Shaolin might be waiting for him, which confuses the doctor. He explains that from a young age, monks look for skilled people, because there is something they cannot fix. The master speaks of wooden figures and says that they can pass by them on the way to Luoyang. They arrive at a large building, and the master excitedly announces that it's time for the first reward. The doctor stares in astonishment at the vast celestial arsenal, impressed by the sheer number of weapons. The clan leader says he can choose one as promised, and the young man thanks the Grand Master. While the doctor gazes in wonder at the shelves, the master points to a specific item. He asks what the boy is looking for, and the doctor thinks of sword fighting or movement techniques. Then his companion finds a dusty book entitled The Arts of the Runaway Monkey and hands it to him. Doctor wonders if he made an entire sword just to learn the movements of a monkey. He complains to the master, wanting to learn sword techniques instead of what he was taught. The master smiles and tells him to stop complaining and learn the material until they can get the medicine. The young man reluctantly agrees as they leave the Namgung family property behind. Later they arrive at a place with several bags full of herbs, and the master asks if he has memorized them. The boy says yes, but he doesn't understand anything, and the old man says he should think about it while he trains. He holds the book suspiciously, wondering if it would really be useful to him. The master encourages him with a smile, telling him to eat it before any explanation. The doctor panics when his colleague forcefully opens his mouth, with a terrifying expression. He offers her a purple, gooey object, saying it's tasty and good for her health. The young man is disgusted when he sees the repulsive thing and wonders why anyone would eat it. He yells at the master for giving him useless techniques, and now a bag of poison to eat. The old man smiles and says he will eventually explain the reason, stating that it is an opportunity for him. The doctor stares in shock at the master's hand, holding the pouch of poison, wondering about it. He says he can become a true master of medicine, a divine doctor, without acupuncture. The master enthusiastically asks if he won't eat, and the young man with poison in his mouth reluctantly agrees. Immediately afterwards, the old man covers the boy's mouth to force him to swallow, and he struggles desperately. Lying on the floor, the doctor screams furiously, accusing his colleague of trying to end his life. The master says that now he will make his own poison pouch, and the young man complains about his tricks and deceptions. In a serious tone, he explains that both have an obligation to protect the art of medicine. The doctor thinks ironically about how a gentleman who defends medicine is feeding him poison. His companion recalls an old fight where poisoned needles increased the chance of survival. He explains that in order to do this, the young man needs to be able to release venom at any time. For a doctor, the venom sac is like having a storehouse of medicinal ingredients in the body. This allows the poison to be used appropriately, as demonstrated by dropping a drop into a bowl, or it can be used in excess, transforming the liquid into a much more potent substance. The decision of how and on whom to use this power will depend entirely on the young doctor's choices. The boy thinks this is an unorthodox approach, but his teacher questions the usefulness of such definitions. He declares that he will treat any patient, whether they are orthodox, heterodox, or even a demon. The old man states with conviction that to achieve a goal, the only thing that matters is practicality. He then asks if the doctor understood the need for the techniques, and the young man reluctantly agrees. With a sinister smile, the master says that now is the time to survive, for the poison will spread. Then he places his hand on the boy's back to initiate the process of activating the venom in the body. The doctor concentrates while his companion warns him to focus, because it will be different from last time. Suddenly his consciousness is transported to an ethereal plane where he meditates while floating. The master instructs him to wait in silence, while the doctor meditates in a quiet place surrounded by blue butterflies. He is warned not to panic, even if the venom appears to pierce his stomach and spread. Even if the poison contaminates his blood and tries to spread throughout his body, he shouldn't be surprised by its intensity. Suddenly the atmosphere darkens, and a shadowy presence with purple eyes looms over him as he meditates. The master's voice explains that the more the poison is stirred, the stronger it becomes, and a giant serpent emerges before him. The moment he senses the poison's form, he must suppress it using his inner energy. The venomous snake's eye gleams intensely as the creature prepares to attack the young man. A powerful beam of cyan energy is fired from the creature, striking the spot where the doctor is meditating. The serpent roars, releasing a powerful aura, while blue butterflies flutter around it in the spiritual plane. The master instructs him to suppress the poison with his energy, and we see currents of energy forming. He must push the poison into his danshin, trapping the dark energy with chains of his own strength. The young man, his face covered in sweat, strains to control the poisonous energy within him. He continues the suppression process until the poison's energy completely calms down in his danshin. Once the energy is calm, as if nothing had happened, the process will be almost complete. The image of a butterfly landing on a purple sphere symbolizes that he was successful in his training. Back to reality, the doctor takes a deep breath, sweating and with red eyes, realizing that he has gone too far. Although it was a crude lesson, he understands what his master meant by the whole process. At that moment, his friend appears and asks if he is awake, wanting to know what kind of workout he did. He seems preoccupied with his beggar-like appearance and wonders what has happened in the last 5 days. The doctor asks about the master, and his friend explains that he left grumbling, because he couldn't fight the hero Namgoon. The friend complains that the master said the doctor ate something as good as the black peony and that he ate it all by himself. The doctor smiles maliciously and says that if he's curious, he'll show him the difference between them. He raises his index finger and with an intense gleam in his eye, prepares to demonstrate his newfound power. Your friend is frightened by the sudden change in attitude and the aura emanating from the doctor. With a shout, the doctor concentrates his energy at the tip of his finger, creating a point of purple light. He touches the table and a puddle of purple liquid forms on the wood, under the astonished gaze of his companion. The friend recognizes the art of the poison and notices the strange smell and sensation emanating from the puddle. He ironically congratulates him, saying that now the doctor can have diarrhea with his hands, and the young man challenges him to try. Then the master appears and tells them to stop talking nonsense and get ready to leave the property. While they are traveling, the doctor layman's having to leave, and the old man asks if he deliberately delayed his stay. They travel along a dirt road with a caravan of merchants, and the master blames the boy for the delay. The young man complains that he would have finished faster if he had trained like the Namgoon family, but the old man reprimands him. The master reminds him that being from a famous orthodox faction guarantees nothing, and that he has seen many of them fall. He says that the doctor only needs to follow the path he himself has laid out, and the young man questions him about it. The old man emphasizes that active training is better than contemplation, and that the important thing is to survive. He shouts excitedly that he understood everything and announces that the group of merchants' last stop is now. The doctor remarks that everything seems to be done unorthodoxly, and the others begin to argue with him. They arrive at a village and sit down at an outdoor table, ready to rest from their long journey. A tired-looking man approaches them and asks if they brought the goods. The merchant asks how many bads he wants, and the man asks to set aside 3, because he'll bring alcohol. The man says he will return soon and begs them to save the people in need of help. The doctor observes the man with a worried expression, trying to understand what is happening to him. He notices that the man's face is pale, but there are eruptions of heat all over his body. Seeing the man's labored breathing, he wonders if it could be a heat-related illness. While holding his chopsticks, the doctor draws the master's attention to the man's condition. With eyes wide in surprise, he finally realizes the gravity of the situation they are in. The master reveals with a serious expression that it is the dust of 5 stones, leaving the young man shocked. They arrive at Nam village, where they find a property surrounded by white walls and dark roofs. The place seems peaceful, with traditional buildings and a gentle mist hanging over the mountains. Inside a dark room, hooded men prepare the powder of 5 stones by grinding it in a mortar. A line of men with their faces covered waits patiently to receive the mysterious powder. They mix the powder in small bowls, preparing to consume the substance in a ritualistic way. One of the men falls to the ground writhing in pain, while a tall figure watches him from the shadows. The mysterious figure approaches the fallen man, who continues to groan in agony on the ground. The leader of the operation orders that the man be placed in the well and burned to eliminate any trace. The fallen man's hand, covered in bandages, is surrounded by small white stones used in the ritual. The doctor realizes that the powder is a drug that rots the body and mind, and that the place is the headquarters of those who produce it. The trio approaches the property with the master in the middle and the 2 young men beside him. They just stand there in front of his property. The doctor asks if they really need to do that, since everyone seems to like the powder. The master explains that the powder steals energy, confuses the mind, and rots the skin, being garbage like Dr. Yim. The doctor's friend is shocked to hear the doctor's name, Young, showing surprise and anger. The old man claims he doesn't care if a piece of trash saved the village, as his only goal is to eliminate those who spread disease. He then bursts open the property gates, preparing to confront the village leader. The trio enters the property with the master, saying he thinks he recognizes the trash they are about to encounter. A bald man with a scar on his face greets them and invites them into the inner hall where the village leader is. They walk through the property's courtyard, surrounded by men who watch them suspiciously. The doctor looks around suspiciously, noticing that all the family members seem to be trained. He sees several men with intimidating appearances, some with weapons and others with battle scars on their bodies. The doctor's friend whispers that they learned martial arts, and the young man wonders what the plan is. The master reveals that they are secretly connected to the Black Tao, and the doctor wonders why he is so serious. He says that the two young men are enough to handle the small fish, and that there is no reason to panic. The old man then sends them into the inner hall, first saying that he has a hunch about what is to come. He assures them that he will follow them soon, but the doctor is concerned about his intentions. The doctor approached the door of the inner hall apprehensively, wondering why the master had sent them ahead. He fears that the village leader is a master swordsman and that they are being used as bait. As he prepares to open the door, the young man thinks about how to greet the leader properly. With a shout, he opens the door, demanding a single gold coin from the leader in exchange for his service. Suddenly, a bag full of money is thrown in his direction, leaving him shocked. A man with a mustache greets him, saying that his powder of 5 stones, worth a gold coin, has arrived. The doctor is confused by the situation, thinking that a sword would appear, not a bag of powder. The man says he was expecting them and compliments their good taste and generosity with a smile. He guarantees the quality and quantity of the product, stating that it is different from low-grade goods. The doctor awkwardly thanks him as he picks up the bag and wonders why the master doesn't come into the hall. The man says that all he needs to do is keep coming back to buy more of his products. Suddenly, a voice shouts the man's name, Nam Ryan Bu, and the doctor's friend glares at him angrily. The master appears in the doorway as an imposing silhouette, confirming that it was him all along. With a menacing smile, the old man orders the man to bring all the goods to him. The merchant is terrified by the threat and begins to tremble with fear, his mustache twitching. Then a sharp blade is pressed against his throat, and the man is paralyzed with terror. The master threatens him, saying that if he gets up he will have a hole in his neck, and the man surrenders. He begs for his life as the old man holds him down on the ground, under the gaze of the two young men. Outside, one of the men announces that he has brought the powder from 5 stones, as ordered by the village leader. The shopkeeper hands 3 wrapped boxes to the man, disposing of the evidence of his crime. He kneels before the master and begs for his life, promising that he will no longer turn to dust. The old man confronts him with his sword and says that if he wants to live, he must eat everything or destroy the dust. The man hesitates, thinking that if he sells the powder, he will get a box full of gold ingots. The master notices his hesitation and asks if he is still thinking about the money, and the man decides to burn everything. He throws the boxes into the fire, and little by little the flames consume the dust. The doctor observes the scene, another man with a sword in hand, ready to act should the man attempt anything. The doctor thinks that now that the powder has been destroyed, they need to get rid of the village leader and leave. The master asks the man who else besides him knows how to make powder from 5 stones. Kneeling on the ground, the merchant assures that no one else knows how to make the substance. He pleads, saying that in this situation, he wouldn't lie to the trio watching him from above. The doctor's friend doubts him and says that the master won't let someone who only sees life as money get away with it. The man continues to plead for his life, his trembling hands pressed against the wooden floor. The old man orders him to stand up and sends him away, leaving the two young men surprised by his decision. The doctor is shocked by the master's apparent mercy, and the man slowly gets up. He looks at the old man with an expression of relief and surprise, unable to believe his luck. With a grateful smile, the merchant thanks the master for the chance to live. However, the master attacks him with his sword, showing that his mercy was merely a bluff. He explains that he warned it not to get up, and that the trash always disobeys his orders. The old man sheathes his sword and tells them to leave before things get more irritating. Outside, the doctor says he really thought the master would let him live, and he replies that absolutely not. The master explains that he had been selling the powder for years and was now involved with Black Dao. He claims that the trash accumulates quickly and that it was only a matter of time before it multiplied. The doctor's friend agrees, saying that he did well to get rid of him because he was worse than the beggars. The old man smiles and says that beggars are much more diligent and honest than that man. He warns that they will see much more garbage in the future and that things will get even more annoying. Suddenly, the master stops and says that a dinner guest has arrived earlier than expected. The two young men look at the master, confused by the mention of unexpected guests in the forest. They see the silhouettes of 4 figures approaching in the distance against the sunset. The figures reveal themselves as members of the Black Dao, dressed in dark clothing and masks that cover their faces. The doctor wonders aloud if the Nam family has already hired people to deal with them. He realizes they will have to fight the guests using the Jasem's sword and becomes apprehensive. The leader of the masked men confirms the fight with a nod, preparing for combat. The master smiles confidently and advances towards the enemies with impressive speed. The young people watch in shock as the old man moves swiftly between the members of the Black Dao. He uses a dual strength martial arts technique, surprising his enemies with its power. The masked men realize that he is not just an ordinary old man, but a formidable adversary. The master says he will take care of the enemy in the middle and orders each of the young men to grab one of the others. The two agree in an advance into battle, following their master's orders without hesitation. The old man runs towards his opponent with incredible speed, leaving a trail of dust behind him. The doctor pursues his target through the forest with an agility that surprises even himself. He wonders how his opponent manages to be so fast on that uneven terrain. The young man is surprised by his own speed and realizes he is managing to catch up with his enemy. He attributes his speed to training in the purple cloud step, which he initially thought was useless. The doctor reflects that perhaps the escaped monkey's skills might also prove useful in the future. He focuses on catching up with his opponent, determined not to disappoint his master or his friend. Suddenly, his target turns to attack him with a scream. The doctor reprimands himself for almost losing focus on his current goal because of his professional development. He dodges an attack from the masked man, who relentlessly pursues him through the forest. The two face off in a sword duel, with the doctor moving with impressive agility. The enemy taunts him, saying he was running away from an eccentric doctor, not a brat like him. He praises the young man's reaction time and draws his sword, preparing for a serious attack. The masked man jumps out of a tree, saying that the doctor chose the wrong fight by confronting him. He warns that the young man should have been better prepared, since he messed with the Nam family mansion. The doctor realizes that his opponent is different from the river bandits and wonders if he is stronger. The enemy says he's just doing what he was paid to do, and the young man becomes tense upon hearing this revelation. He moves to attack the doctor, telling him not to take it personally and calling him a brat. The masked man unleashes a series of rapid blows with his sword, creating a whirlwind of blades. The young man defends himself with his own sword, blocking attacks with precision and skill. He notices that something is wrong with the way his opponent is fighting and becomes suspicious. The enemy also notices that something is out of place, and his eyes narrow with realization. He wonders if the doctor really has so many openings in his defense, or if they are just fates. The young man sees several openings in the masked man's guard and prepares to attack a vulnerable point. He identifies openings in the enemy's flanks and neck and prepares to exploit one of them. The doctor realizes that his opponent isn't toying with him like the gang leader used to. He thinks the masked man learned to fight with a sword properly, unlike the bandits. The enemy laughs and taunts him, asking if running away is all he has learned. The doctor thinks the enemy's laughter is very arrogant and decides to attack with everything he has. He leaps toward the masked man, his sword raised, preparing for an aerial strike. The enemy blocks the attack with his own blade, creating a shock wave that echoes through the forest. The young man continues his aerial attack, descending with his sword towards his opponent. The masked man defends himself with a swift movement of his sword, deflecting the doctor's blow. The doctor's blade gleams in the sunlight as he prepares for his next move. The two face off in an aerial combat, exchanging quick and precise blows in the middle of the forest. The enemy recognizes the young man's skill in handling the sword. Even though he is just a brat, the doctor realizes that his opponent is truly skilled and that the openings were not fake. He decides he needs to finish off the enemy now, while the enemy is confused about his ability. Suddenly, the masked man throws several daggers at the doctor, who deflects them with his sword. He manages to block most of the daggers, but some graze him on the flanks. The enemy says that although he knows a few tricks, that's the end for him in the battle. The doctor feels a tingling sensation in his flanks and his vision begins to blur because of the venom. The masked man reveals that he used salamander venom and that he will lose control of his body in 15 minutes. The doctor replies that, of course, he would prefer the enemy to perish before that happens. The enemy attacks him with more daggers, hoping he will die before losing control of his body. The doctor realizes that he is trying to make the poison spread faster by forcing him to move. With a sinister smile, the young man says that salamander venom is nothing compared to snake venom. He decides to devour the poison using his own ability to absorb the substance. Within his mind, we see several spiritual salamanders surrounding an orb of purple energy that represents his core. The orb then creates a whirlwind of green energy that sucks in and disintegrates the spiritual salamanders. The small salamanders are easily subdued by the gigantic purple venomous serpent in its spiritual plane. Back in reality, the doctor's eye glows with a snake-like pupil, showing that he has absorbed the venom. The masked man leaps to attack, but the young man shouts that his vision has returned to normal, surprising the enemy. The enemy shouts in disbelief, wondering how he can still move and if he has a Bazor Pearl. With a superior look, the doctor stares at his opponent and, with a mocking smile, asks if he is curious. He explains that some lizards can't even scratch their venom core, which is made from snake venom. A burst of light blue energy fills the screen, signaling the climax of the battle between the two. The two fighters fly through the air amidst debris, demonstrating the intensity of the confrontation. The doctor stares at his opponent with determination, ready for the next move in the fight. He coughs up a little blood but stands firm, sword in hand, in the middle of the forest. The masked man falls to the ground with several daggers embedded in his body, defeated by the young man. He laments having been defeated by a brat and drops his dagger on the ground. Lying on the ground, the enemy looks at the doctor in disbelief, repeating that he lost to a boy. The masked man admits defeat as the doctor watches him, standing with his sword in hand. Suddenly, the enemy attempts one last desperate attack, trying to strike the young man with his dagger. The doctor is surprised by the unexpected attack, and the masked man stabs himself in the stomach. The young man realizes that he was only trying to alleviate his pain with the salamander venom. He feels the pain of the poison in his body as sweat drips down his face during the battle. The fallen enemy on the ground begs for mercy as the pain of the poison intensifies in his body. The doctor approaches him as the man continues to plead for mercy amidst his agony. He remembers other people who pleaded for mercy in similar situations and hesitates for a moment. The young man looks at the fallen man, remembering difficult moments from his past. The doctor approaches the enemy, who is still begging for mercy with his sword in hand. He extends his hand toward the masked man, seemingly offering to help him in his suffering. However, the young man releases an aura of purple poison from his hand, preparing for a dark act. He places his hand on the masked man's body and begins to absorb the poison from his body. The masked man thanks the doctor, saying that he wasn't just a brat after all. He dies peacefully in the forest, saying he no longer feels pain and thanking the young man again. The master and the doctor's friend approach, and the old man says that he is late for the meeting. The young man counts on his fingers how many enemies he has defeated, and the master and his friend look confused. The old man stares at his apprentice with a serious expression, and the young man continues counting on his fingers. The doctor asks if they will investigate Black Dao's hideout, and the master confirms. He continues counting on his fingers how many enemies he has defeated. Reaching 11, the trio prepares to leave, with the master telling them to pack their things and go.